Of course, all this was only on the surface. The most powerful person in Mamie restaurant was the lady boss, who dared to face the wind forest and still hold them off. She, and an exceedingly beautiful, handsome and powerful boss. Rena looked at those names on the notebook with gradually brightening eyes. As a locally born and bred Chaos City's resident, she knew very well what the names in the notebook meant. What she didn't expect was that all these people who were standing at Chaos City's pinnacle were in fact all members of the restaurant. This was indeed too shocking. If someone is bullying you, tell me. The restaurant and I will always stand behind you. Mag smiled. We will all stand behind you if someone dares to bully you. Yabimiya nodded too. If they are baddies, I will help big sister Rena chase them away. I'm very formidable, Amy gravely said too, clenching her small fist. Did someone bully you? Irina asked Rena with befuddlement. This awkward ambience puzzled her. After pondering, she added, Who is that? I'll go beat him up for you. All of you, Rena looked at everyone who was looking at her with concern. Tears were already gathered in her eyes. She was temporarily at a loss for how to explain the incident to them. Mag flicked a glance at Rena. He could understand why she was hung up and afraid, so he smiled. All right. We are finished announcing these two incidents. Let's eat. So, everyone stopped asking, and began to enjoy their meals. Elizabeth threw a glance at Mag. Although she didn't know what he had done, she had a feeling that he had already done all the arrangements. That was why he was calm and able to consider Rena's feelings. Oh yes, boss. Many customers asked for the husband and wife lung slice in the morning. When will this dish be released? Yabimiya suddenly asked when she was halfway through eating. Mag pondered, and then answered, after we come back from the Twilight Forest. Let's push it back a few days. I guess the customers are going to complain again. Yabimiya shrugged. The husband and wife lung slice became very popular after yesterday's duel. She already had many customers asking her about it. Just tell them that good dishes are worth waiting for. Mag chuckled. He wasn't going to hide it deliberately, but he intended to have a secret dish when he arrived in the Twilight Forest. The husband and wife lung slice was the only choice currently. As expected, what the customers inquired most about was still the husband and wife lung slice at the lunch service. And after hearing Yabimiya's answer, besides complaining, they could only accept it. What else could they do? The little boss was watching them. They couldn't be demolishing the shop, right? Master, I am here for my lesson. 30 minutes after the lunch service was over, Harris rang the bell at the restaurant's door, and smilingly spoke to Mag, who opened the door. Chapman was standing behind him. Please come in. Mag held the door open to let Harris pass. He couldn't help but chuckle when he saw Chapman keeping watch at the door. You're not coming in. I shouldn't be present when Grandmaster is teaching Master. I will just keep watch here, Chapman respectfully replied. Come on in. You can learn as well if you want to. Mag smiled. This disciple of Harris was rather interesting. Chapman looked at Harris. Your Grandmaster has already spoken, so why are you still standing at the door? Trying to be a doorman? Harris rolled his eyes. Yes. Chapman nodded before going in. An emergency happened in the morning, so I had to push the appointment to the afternoon. Mag brought Harris to the kitchen while passing the aprons to them. It's fine. After all, we have nothing to do all day, Harris smilingly replied. He wasn't angry about being stood up in the morning. With glowing eyes and amazed when he saw Mag's kitchen, he said, Master, your kitchen is simply too professional, all right. Those two luminous pearls embedded there must have cost a fortune, right? And all the glistening kitchenware. How did you manage to keep it so bright and shiny? This wall of knives is so complete. I didn't expect there would really be chefs who could keep the kitchen so spick and span. It's really incredible. Those two over there are lights. The kitchenware is stainless steel, and I seldom use those knives. The fathead fish alone is enough to handle 99% of the situations. As for keeping the kitchen spick and span, isn't it the most basic thing that a chef should do? Mag calmly replied. Many chefs know that, but not many are persistently doing it. I have only met 3 till now, and Master is one of them. Harris retrieved his gaze and then smiled at Mag. However, this really is a thing that is worth doing persistently. All right. Then, we will be learning the husband and wife lung slice now. Before we start the learning process formally, let me tell you the origin of this dish first, Mag said gravely as he got into the character of a master rapidly. The most obvious benefit of talented teacher +1 was that he felt no shame to be addressed as master, and a set of special teaching words would automatically form in his head. Harris and Chapman were listening to him very attentively. The latter was even taking down notes in a notebook as he listened, looking like a total nerd. As for that skill Midas touch, Mag initially thought it was an alchemist's standard skill, and after obtaining it, he could embark on his journey of stay home and get rich by pointing at the items at home. He didn't expect that the touch was meant for stupid brains. The description of Midas touch, using the secret technique of Midas touch on the intended person so the other party could quickly understand and accept the knowledge. Even the dullest brain could become smart. This was indeed a teacher's gold finger one. With this, even if Mag couldn't continue to operate a restaurant in the future, he could become a teacher at any culinary schools. He would definitely be one of the best teachers. However, there was a clause to utilize this skill. The other party had to be the user's disciple or disciple's disciple. Mag explained the origin of husband and wife lung slice, but he skipped certain details and parts that were difficult to explain. He then proceeded to the stove, and picked out all the spices from the spice zone as he explained. The crucial and important step for making husband and wife lung slice is the braising. The outcome of the braising will decide the basic taste and texture of the husband and wife lung slice, and set the basic tone for this dish. Hence, for today's lesson, we will start with learning about all the different kinds of spices needed for the braising. One gold finger is slang for a cheat in Chinese web novels, such as a system or special ability. For example, that spice called star anise. According to Mag, it was produced in the mountains near the Eason Castle. However, he had never seen a chef use that spice after staying at Eason Castle for over 20 years. And that cinnamon, which was a fragrant tree bark. This method of obtaining spices amazed him. Master, you said that these spices are needed, but I'm afraid no market on the Norland continent will have all of them. Harris couldn't help complaining after Mag finished explaining. That's true. I have to obtain some of the spices through special channels too. Furthermore, they're not widely accepted and promoted. Mag nodded in agreement. Some of the spices had never existed in this world. It was the system that had modified and grown them. In this case, wouldn't we be unable to replicate this dish after we left Chaos City? Harris scratched his head with a frown. That was a little annoying. I will give you a pack of spices when you leave. You can always come back and get the spices from me after you finish them, Master said to Harris gravely. As the saying goes, while one's masters are alive, one should not travel to distant places. Grandmaster, isn't it while one's parents are alive, one should not travel to distant places? Chapman asked softly after hesitating for a moment. Harris couldn't help giving him a side glance. That was obviously taking advantage of him. That's roughly the meaning. Mag nodded with a natural expression before he continued, knowing the spices is just the first step. Now, we're going to talk about how to do the braising. This is the step that allows the beef and beef offals to absorb the spices perfectly. It's also the most crucial step of the husband and wife lung slice. A pot of excellent marinade could give the meat a soul, so these spices are the real main characters, Mag continued to explain. He set up a pot, and began to demonstrate while he taught. As an old chef with dozens of years of experience, these steps were extremely simple to Harris. To him, it was more about learning about Mag's understanding of the spices and how to use them, and how to add such a big amount of spices together to create an even more exquisite taste without hindering or interfering with one another. Meanwhile, Chapman was a very honest student. He noted down every step that Mag explained in detail, and highlighted the important point at the same time. He looked just like a student who sat in the first row to take down the points. After plating, slowly drizzle the boiled red oil over it, and then scatter a bunch of roasted sesame seeds. Add a little green cilantro as a garnish, and the delicious husband and wife lung slice is done. Mag took a step back to showcase the husband and wife lung slice that he had just completed. Both its aroma and presentation are exemplary. The astonishingly complicated pairing sparkled with a genius design stroke. "Master, you're truly a genius," Harris praised with amazement. The previous step of cooking the red oil had also amazed him. He'd never thought that oil could be processed with this method to become like a condiment. It subverted some of his fixed thinking. It's simply a routine operation. Mag waved his hands nonchalantly, and passed a pair of chopsticks each to Harris and Chapman. "Come and taste it. You guys didn't taste it yesterday, either. Let me taste this beef first." Harris took the chopsticks, and picked up a piece of the thinly sliced beef coated with a layer of red oil. Whiffs of the aroma of the braised meat coated with red oil drifted over gradually. His mouth already began to salivate even before it entered the mouth. The beef was tender yet still a little chewy, but it wasn't the melt-in-your-mouth type. The aroma of the meat slowly blossomed in the mouth as he chewed. Under the red oil's catalysis, a scrumptiousness that made the taste buds go crazy was released. This taste! Harris's eyes lit up instantly. This taste was simply too impactful. The spices weren't stacked together meaninglessly. Every one of them was giving out a unique fragrance, which gave this mouthful of meat layers of tastes. The rich aroma exploded in his mouth, entrancing and intoxicating. "Rib!" A loud tearing sounded, and Harris's rammy cotton top ripped apart. This dish has actually reached the standard which could cause Master's clothes to rip apart. Chapman stared at Harris's torn clothes with shock. He had followed his master for years, and had only seen this happen a couple of times. Does this dish indeed have such amazing magic? Chapman used his chopsticks to pick up a piece of ox scalp expectantly, and popped it into his mouth. The soft ox scalp wasn't as hard as the hide, and he could bite into it easily. The ox scalp, which was the hardest to marinate, was still infused with the rich spicy fragrance after braising for a long time. The collagen gave it a slightly sticky texture. However, the gravy balanced out the stickiness, and gave it a very good flavor and texture. Meanwhile, the red oil that coated the ox scalp gave it an aromatic spiciness. "So, this is what it tastes like?" Chapman's eyes glowed. The ox scalp's taste had completely exceeded his expectations. The exquisite layers of tastes made him realize that all the complicated procedures and each and every spice had their unique uses. "I think yesterday's duel was a little unfair," Harris said to Mag with a serious expression. Mag looked at him. Is he thinking of renouncing the result? This obviously should have been a 5:0 result. My 18-year-old maiden's dress has lost by a whole mile, all right. They're not comparable at all. 3:1 was an insult to the husband and wife lung slice. Harris said agitatedly. Mag didn't know how to continue the conversation, so he simply smiled. All right. I have done all the explanations for this dish. You guys can use all the equipment and ingredients you need in the kitchen to practice on your own. You can come and ask me whenever you have a question. Harris nodded, and then smiled at Chapman. "Manman, shall we both make a helping of husband and wife lung slice at the same time, and see which is better? Your disciple is stupid, so I dare not compete with master." Chapman shook his head. "It's fine. I knew you're stupid and a slow learner too. Otherwise, why would I pick you? Harris chuckled. But that's not going to affect me from doing my best. Chapman was still a little hesitant. Don't worry, let Grandmaster guide you. Mag smiled at Chapman, and then reached out to him with his middle finger. I will never let emotions affect my decisions. Mag took a step back. Meanwhile, Chapman closed his eyes. Chapman felt a mysterious power suddenly surge into his mind. Every step that Mag demonstrated earlier and every sentence that he said kept repeating in his mind. Some things that he couldn't understand previously suddenly became resolved and easy to understand. He only opened his eyes slowly after a while as if he had already grasped everything. Can you remember all the steps? Mag asked smilingly. Yes, I can. Chapman nodded, and he looked at Mag with an amazed and respectful gaze. He really couldn't understand how he could completely grasp the dish's recipe as if he had been practicing making it dozens of times after Mag simply tapped in between his eyebrows gently. Did you really get all the steps? Harris was also looking at Chapman doubtfully. This disciple of his was good in every aspect except for being a slow learner. Not only did he start slow, he also proceeded very slowly. The only good thing about him was stability. Yes, Master. Chapman nodded again. Harris knew that Chapman never lied, so he couldn't help staring at Mag's finger with suspicion. Could this really be some gold finger? Just a tap from it, and one could master the recipe? However, as his master, he couldn't show his weakness now, so he chuckled. All right, since this is the case, let's have a master and disciple culinary duel today, with husband and wife lung slice as the duel's subject. My master will be the judge to see whose dish is nicer. Yes. Chapman nodded respectfully, and no longer rejected. Since this is the case, I will be the arbiter in this internal strife of master and disciple. First, I will never let emotions affect my decisions. Second, I will never miss a fault. Third, I will definitely be fair and just. Judge Mag, take your position. I will be the judge of this duel. Mag lifted his hand, but nobody moved. Hence, he could only retrieve his hand awkwardly, and took 2 steps to give Harris and Chapman space. The duel. Start right now. Master is indeed professional. Harris and Chapman were slightly taken aback, but after hearing the duel had begun, they immediately entered into the cooking mode formally. The first step started with the ingredients. They had to select the spices needed for the braising marinade from the spice box that contained hundreds of spices. This would test whether they had listened to his lecture attentively earlier, and how much they understood about these spices. Harris looked at the spice box, and descended deep into thought. He saw them earlier, but he couldn't remember which box Mag took the spices out from. After seriously pondering for a while, he chose a few spices with obvious features like star anise. As for the rest, he depended on his nose to differentiate them. However, on the other side, Chapman was already casually picking out all kinds of spices from the box, and tossing them into the pot with a smooth action as if he knew what he was doing very well. Is he for real? When Harris turned around, Chapman had already finished selecting his ingredients, and started to prepare the beef and beef offal. After hesitating for a while, Harris popped his head over to steal a peep. Warning for peeping. Mag's serious voice was heard. Hee hee. I'm just trying to see if this kid is fooling around. Harris shrugged and smiled embarrassedly. Mag was expressionless, but his gaze was focused on Chapman. He also wanted to know what was the effect of this gold finger. Was it really applicable to anybody? Harris picked out the spices with his sense of smell. Although he was slightly slow, he did get every spice that was needed. However, by the time he picked out all the spices, Chapman had already put the meat in the marinade for braising. Hey! He isn't slow at the start this time. Instead, he is terrifyingly fast. Harris was a little taken by surprise, and was increasingly curious about what Mag did to Chapman earlier. It actually had such an amazing effect. Or maybe Master has given his disciple's disciple extra lessons behind my back. Another idea popped up in Harris's mind, but was swiftly rejected by him. They didn't have the time to do that. I didn't expect that one day I would need to be serious when I faced off against Manman. Harris sighed. He began to put on a serious expression. After recalling the procedures that Mag had executed earlier, he started to cook following the steps. Mag was simply watching at the side quietly as he observed the details of their cooking. He didn't remind or correct them. It was obvious that Chapman executed the details very well after he gave him a tap. His understanding of the husband and wife lung slice was already very deep and thorough. Meanwhile, Harris also displayed a very powerful understanding and execution by depending on his exquisite cutting skills and dozens of years of experience as a chef. His details were also impeccable, but he would still pause at certain steps as he had only watched Mag demonstrate and explain once. "Manman, lend me your notes for a while," Harris said to Chapman, and then calmly explained, "I didn't forget. I simply want to confirm it. This is the most basic serious attitude that a chef should have. Watch and learn from me." "Yes, Master." Chapman passed the notebook to Harris with a grave expression. Mag pursed his lips. "Who is going to believe you, old man? You're so naughty. For this red oil, add this, and then add this." Harris was flipping through Chapman's notebook seriously while Chapman was already pouring the completed red oil into a big bowl, and set it aside for later use. 30 minutes later, Harris drizzled the simmered red oil over the plated beef and beef offals, and a plate of red husband and wife lung slice was done. On the other side, Chapman had already finished his dish a few minutes ago. Harris threw a glance at Chapman's husband and wife lung slice. It basically looked the same as his. After all, he'd brought him up as a disciple. He had a stubborn determination like a bull and cutting skills that he had been practicing for 20 over years. He was just slightly better than him. Why am I feeling a little nervous? I shouldn't be feeling that? Harris cocked his eyebrow as he felt his heart begin to race. It was fine losing to Mag. After all, there was always someone who was better than him out there. However, if he lost to the disciple he'd brought up, that feeling would be really awkward. The cooking is complete. Now, we will enter into the judging round. Mag snapped his fingers to indicate to both contestants to bring up their completed husband and wife lung slice. Regarding their appearance, both dishes almost looked the same. The cook's exquisite cutting skills made sure every slice of meat had the same thickness. The dishes were spread out on the respective plates like an open flower. Chapman's cutting skills had given Mag a pleasant surprise. He might look dull and boring, but he possessed marvelous cutting skills which were only second to Harris's. His overall performance should be above his. "Let me taste them." Mag picked a pair of chopsticks, and started with a piece of beef from Harris's plate. Chapter 1504 I'm really not very good at being a teacher at all. Then, he put it into his mouth. The beef was tender, and melted in the mouth with a gentle bite. The spicy aroma blossomed in his mouth, and intermingled with the beef. It could be described as scrumptious. However, Mag began to frown a little. After some thought, he popped another piece of tripe into his mouth. The tripe was still crisp, but he found that certain parts weren't easy to chew and swallow. Mag pondered as he roughly knew where the problem was. Harris was staring at Mag nervously, eagerly expecting his review. But Mag simply put down his chopsticks without saying anything. Instead, he rinsed his mouth, took a new pair of chopsticks, and then picked up a piece of beef from Chapman's plate. Judging from its looks, it wasn't much different from the one Harris made, but the red oil's aroma was much richer. Putting the beef into his mouth, Mag chewed it gently. The tender texture gave him a refreshing sensation. The meaty aroma of the beef blended together with the spicy aroma of the red oil and exploded in his mouth, giving him a pleasantly surprising texture and a wonderful taste. Mag nodded. This was the proper taste. It should be tender but not mushy. Although they looked almost the same, the texture and taste were completely different, and the control of the heat was the deciding factor. Furthermore, Chapman's red oil's aroma was also richer than Harris's. The taste of the chili and all the spices were completely simmered into the red oil. Then, Mag moved on to a piece of tripe. The springy texture gave the teeth an exquisite experience, and it dissolved completely after chewing. It was obvious whose was better. Harris's husband and wife lung slice was sliced perfectly, and there was nothing wrong with the cooking steps and procedures, but because you are unfamiliar with the spices, ingredients, and cooking methods, it affected the final outcome. The beef was too mushy, and disintegrated in the mouth immediately. I wasn't able to enjoy the rich meat aroma by chewing the beef. The tripe was slightly overcooked, so it was crisp but not tender, and certain parts couldn't be chewed out completely at the same time. This greatly affected the tripe's texture and taste. It's already very exceptional that you could reach this standard for your first time making husband and wife lung slice. Mag smiled at Harris. Master, you're too kind, too kind. Harris smiled humbly, but his expression became increasingly smug. He had expected that the heat control would have a little problem as it was his first time making it, after all. He still wasn't very familiar with the cooking method and ingredients. It was already very good that he could reproduce the whole process almost perfectly. Mag then continued talking to Chapman. However, comparatively speaking, Chapman's husband and wife lung slice has already reached the professional level. Both the brewing of the red oil and the braising of the beef and beef offals have displayed his understanding of this dish. Moreover, when it comes to the control of the heat, he has grasped the tempo perfectly. The tender beef and the springy tripe have showcased the essence and scrumptiousness of the husband and wife lung slice perfectly. He could be called a genius as he's able to make such a high-standard husband and wife lung slice on his very first try. Harris's smile gradually froze on his smile as he suddenly sensed something wasn't very right. There was a gigantic gap between very exceptional and genius. He had never expected these two descriptions would be used on Chapman and him one day, and furthermore, he would only be very exceptional, while Chapman was the genius. Hence, for this duel of your very first try on making husband and wife lung slice, I choose Chapman's husband and wife lung slice. This can't be happening, Harris looked crestfallen. This actually happened. One had to know that Chapman was a very slow learner. Every time Harris tried to teach him a new dish, it would usually take him a whole month to master it. But today, he had mastered the dish simply by watching and listening to Mag's demonstration once. This was totally unlike Chapman. Chapman quickly shook his head. I am not smart. It's all due to Grandmaster's teaching that allowed me to grasp the husband and wife lung slice so rapidly. I won't dare to say that I've defeated Master. Let me try it too. Harris was still not very convinced. He picked up a piece of the beef that he made with his chopsticks. It was exactly as Mag described. It was too mushy with no texture. The original taste of the beef was all lost. This terrible texture. Harris frowned. This heat control problem was indeed rather serious. It had completely lost the taste that he should have achieved. He then popped a piece of Chapman's beef into his mouth. The tender texture together with spicy aromatic red oil, aroma of the marinade, and meat brought along the double ecstasy of chewiness and scrumptiousness. I suspect you've been playing me all along. Harris put down his chopsticks after a long time, and gazed at Chapman with a complicated expression. Chapman was embarrassed, and he was at a loss for how to reply. Harris exhaled a breath as he felt rather fortunate. It's good that I calmed myself earlier, and didn't bet on accepting another master. Comparing these two husband and wife lung slice versions, mine was indeed completely defeated. The difference simply isn't in the control of details alone, it is also in the understanding of this dish, Harris acknowledged honestly. However, he still curiously asked Mag, Master, how did you wake this blockhead up? That is something that even I couldn't achieve after teaching him for over 20 years. See this? Mag slowly put out his middle finger. This is the legendary gold finger. It will enlighten anybody. Harris stared at Mag's protruding middle finger. Although he felt something was amiss somewhere, urged by his intense curiosity, he couldn't help asking, "Can you please tap it on me, too?" "All right. Let your master enlighten you too." Mag nodded, and reached out toward Harris's forehead with his middle finger. "Ah, shut up! Don't make weird sounds like this." Mag put down his finger, and took 2 steps backward. Meanwhile, Harris's eyes were still closed, and his eyebrows were slightly raised. His expression was rather interesting. The messy information about the husband and wife lung slice in his brain seemed to be pointed into the correct direction by this tap, and was rearranged into information that he could easily understand and absorb quickly. The problems that he couldn't understand earlier were also resolved. This is simply too amazing. About 3 minutes later, Harris opened his eyes and looked at Mag with amazement. "It's really enlightening. I really get everything after one tap. Master, you're really a genius as a teacher." Mag shook his head, and humbly said, "It's only a small trick. I'm really not very good at being a teacher at all." Chapter 1505. Could it be him? The same old rule as usual. A murderer must pay with his life. "Dig a hole in the backyard and bury him," Bennett calmly said as he casually added another 2 pieces of charcoal into the stove. "Yes," that bulky man answered before walking toward the door. "Wait a sec," Bennett suddenly called out. The man turned around with befuddlement, and Bennett said, "Be clean in your work these days." "Alrighty," the man answered before striding out. "Am I getting more and more timid?" Bennett smirked at himself. The words that Mag said in the morning appeared in his mind again. If Mag had said those words 10 years ago, he wouldn't have let him walk out of this door. However, Mag's identity was rather unique. Not only was his daughter the disciple of the 2 great magic casters, given his current fame in Chaos City, Bennett would be in trouble if anything was to happen to Mag. Of course, this didn't mean that he would have to take it lying down. He had just sent out a few letters. Certain people would be arriving from some other places a few days later. It would be easier for them to handle certain things. Mag was just a chef. How dared he say such big words to Bennett? The latter wouldn't be able to survive in Chaos City in the future if he didn't teach the former a lesson now. Bennett turned to look at the dark sky outside the window, and curled his lips. His people should already be teaching that old lady a lesson right now. He wasn't happy that Rena wasn't being cooperative at all, so she had to pay a price for her behavior. 3 black shadows approached the dormitory in the dark. Their eyes met in the dark and acknowledged one another. One of them pointed up, and then the trio proceeded up to the dormitory's door via the staircase. One of them was prepared to knock on the door, while the other 2 grasped the ropes and wooden clubs in their hands tightly. Bang, bang, bang. Before they could knock on the door, 3 dull thuds already sounded. 3 grey temple men were dragging the 3 men in black away, and swiftly disappeared into the dark night. After a while, the dormitory's door cracked open. Were the stray cats fighting again? Clarence murmured as she looked around puzzledly. Then, she closed the door again. The casino in the west of the city. A figure was lying on a rooftop, watching the casino staff dig a big hole in the backyard and toss 2 orcs into it. One of them was already dead, while the other was still struggling, but his mouth was sealed, and he was tied up. He could only make some muffled sounds. "Why are you screaming?" "A murderer must pay with his life as a debtor pays with money. That is the casino's rule. We will help you spend the money that you've won." The bulky man, who was at Bennett's earlier on, smirked, and the rest burst into laughter with him. "Bury him, and do a clean job." That man weighed the heavy money with his hand and smiled. "I'll be giving you all a treat tonight. We will have both good wine and beautiful women." "Alrighty," everyone answered excitedly, and their digging became a lot faster. After burying the two, they simply tossed 2 stones over the place, and then left. That black shadow who was lying on the roof waited for a while before leaping into the backyard. He got a bamboo rod out of nowhere, and used a wooden rod to poke a hole in the ground before stuffing the hollow bamboo into it. He soon disappeared from the yard too. "Sir, come in and have fun. We have some new succubi who know everything. We promise to give you a good time." In the south of the city, in front of a brothel with red lanterns hanging on the door, an old woman was leading a few seductively dressed succubi as they attracted the attention of the passing men. A wretched-looking demon stumbled over, and asked in a low voice, "The goods, do you have it today?" The old madam flicked a glance at his bursting money bag, and immediately put on a smiley face. She grabbed him by the arm as she led him into the building. She smilingly said, "Of course, we have all the goods that you want here. Including the latest," that demon pursued. "Of course. No other brothels will have as many goods as us here in Chaos City," the old madam smilingly answered. She reached in between her deep ravine, and got a packet of white powder out. She pressed it into that demon's hand. "Take a look at that color. Where are you going to get such a grade after leaving this courtyard? Number 1 has already infiltrated the enemy's interior, and confirmed there is a forbidden drug trade. We request for backup." Behind a big tree a distance away, a young man was talking into a conch in his hand in a low voice. A huge invisible net had already been spread out, but the fish in it still had no idea about it at all. After the busy dinner service was over, Rena rushed back to the dormitory without having supper with Mag and the gang. She was finally relieved after she saw her mother answer the door looking perfectly fine. Rena closed the door, and smilingly asked Clarence, "Mother, are you hungry? Should I cook something for you?" "I'm not hungry. I will be sleeping soon, so I don't need to eat anything." Clarence shook her head with a smile. She looked at Rena with an aching heart. "You must be exhausted after a busy day. Quickly go wash up and rest." "I'm not tired at all." "Then, I will go and bathe now." Rena shook her head smilingly, and went into the bathroom with her pajamas. Soaking in the tub, Rena recalled the words that Mag told her that day, and there was a warm feeling in her heart. Much of her fear of that balding man dissipated too. This wasn't the slums, after all. He wouldn't dare to attempt anything here. Early the next morning, Bennett was woken by a series of panicked knocking. "B-boss, all our gambling dens and brothels were raided last night." A middle-aged manager barged in, and reported to Bennett with a face full of fear. "What?" Bennett jumped out of his bed immediately and glared. "What did you say?" "All your gambling dens and brothels were raided by the Grey Temple last night. All our people are arrested. They couldn't even get the news out." "What do we do now?" that manager said in a tearful voice with a sorrowful expression. "How did that happen?" Bennett frowned. He got off his bed, and began to pace around in his room barefooted. He suddenly halted, and asked that manager, "Did you receive any news?" "No. We didn't receive any replies from our informant at the Grey Temple, either. The people we sent to sound things out didn't return, either." The manager shook his head. They definitely weren't the Grey Temple's match once the latter decided to take action against them. Could it be him? Mag's warning flashed across Bennett's mind as all these things happened after his warning. Chapter 1506 The Evil Dragon Roars. This obviously wasn't a surprise raid which they could get out of. With the relationships that he maintained with money, he used to be able to make everything look law-abiding before the raids. However, this time was different. The gambling dens and brothels were all sealed, and the news only reached him by morning. If they were doing things to such an extent, it meant that this was a huge Grey Temple-led operation that targeted him specifically. Bennett couldn't help thinking about Mag, the restaurant boss who threatened him casually in the tea house that day. In order to thrive in the underworld and get along with the authorities all these years, he had indeed made many enemies. However, even his big brother who was the head of the marquises and wanted him dead couldn't lay a finger on him. Hence, he didn't even bother with the other small fries. If it was Mag, how did he have the influence to make Grey Temple act against him as an insignificant restaurant owner? Moreover, it was such a big operation. Bennett was feeling his heart and head ache now. Although he had been trying to whitewash his identity, getting himself out of those illegal activities and turning himself into a successful legal businessman for the past few years, maintaining this fake identity needed a lot of money, for example like that tea house. Even though it was known as the #1 tea house in Chaos City, and received a lot of customers every day, it was still operating at a loss currently. All this money came from the gambling dens and brothels. Although he was trying to draw a clear boundary between the two of them, he had to admit that these things were what he deemed the most important to him. Losing these two meant losing his source of income, which in turn meant losing everything. Are the casinos and the brothels clearly disconnected from me? Bennett asked the manager. Yes. Apart from a few trusted ones, no one knew that these gambling dens and brothels belonged to you. That manager swiftly nodded. They were all caught too. Bennett frowned. Please rest assured. They are the most tight-lipped, and they know what would happen to them if they told them about you, that manager promised with a pat on his chest. Bennett heaved a breath of relief. As long as he wasn't implicated, then there would be enough room for him to maneuver. He gravely said, "Go and find out what's the situation now. Be careful, don't get yourself implicated." Yes. That manager quickly left. So what if the casinos are gone? I'm still a member of the marquises. As long as the hot pot restaurant can successfully open, I will get the position as the head of the Marquis family from Bowen one day. I should be the one to inherit the Marquis family, Bennett murmured to himself in a low voice. In a cold and eerie dungeon, all kinds of torture instruments hung on the walls. Screams could be heard from the cells all around, accompanied by the crisp and loud sounds of whipping. Boss, the tight-lipped ones have all confessed. The secret boss behind these gambling dens and brothels is Bennett Marquis. Over 50 bodies were dug out from the gambling dens' backyards, and most of them belonged to the gamblers who caused trouble at the gambling dens or had made a killing at them. A huge amount of illegal magical drugs was confiscated from the brothels. We followed the trail last night. We busted their drug manufacturing base, and arrested a bunch of drug-making magic casters. Their secret boss is also Bennett. A member of the Grey Temple's intelligence department strode into Borg's office and placed the testimonies on his table. With a proud expression, he reported, "There's no one that could hide secrets from us, the intelligence department. This is really a big fish. We really wouldn't have found out that such a formidable figure was hiding in Chaos City if we hadn't investigated. Moreover, he has almost completely whitewashed himself." Borg picked up those testimonies, and casually flipped through them with amazement too before looking up at that subordinate. "Do a thorough investigation to find out who is covering for them within the Grey Temple and the City Lord's castle. I want to see who is so formidable to rear a wolf right under our noses." Yes. That subordinate left and closed the door. Borg pondered for a while as he stared at those testimonies. He then proceeded to the Lord of the Grey Temple's office with the testimonies. This was a huge case, and it wasn't just simply threatening Mag. He needed to ask the Lord's permission. This involved many parties' interests, and the decision was above his pay grade. However, he could be sure of one thing. That Marquis family's bastard was going to be so dead. In the patrol department's office, a middle-aged man punched the wall with a dark expression as he said, "Damn, I have no idea where the intelligence department got the high-level permission from, and why they bypassed me completely to raid Bennett's gambling dens and brothels. I still don't know what they are investigating now. The intelligence department is not saying anything. They claim that it's above my pay grade. Captain, what do we do now? Will they find out about us?" Two men in the patrol department's uniforms nervously said as they wiped the cold sweat off their foreheads. The man that they called Captain put down his fist and swiftly calmed down. He shook his head. Don't panic. Not many people knew about this, and the talks are always conducted in Bennett's tea house. As long as Bennett is not being investigated, we will be fine. Furthermore, we have only received a very tiny portion of that money. The two heaved a breath of relief after hearing that. Their eyes even lit up when they heard the last sentence. The middle-aged man continued, however, we need to find out what caused this surprise raid first. Even if we don't help get them released, we will be able to handle the situation better if we know what is going on. All right. We will go and try to find out more from the intelligence department now. The two of them swiftly strode off after hearing that. The middle-aged man paced around in the room with a serious expression, and mumbled to himself, I have to report to that lord about this situation. We have to suppress this. I wonder how many people would get exposed otherwise. Mag woke up early as usual. He turned off the alarm clock on the bedside table, and just as he prepared to get up, the two little ones jumped onto his bed. Meow, the evil dragon roars. Mag looked at the two little ones lying on either of his sides while seriously pretending to be fierce. He couldn't help but smile. Gruel, right then, the sound of a stomach's rumbling could be clearly heard. It should be the hungry dragon roars, right? I've heard the sounds of a stomach rumbling. Mag smiled at Amy. Yeah. Stupid stomach, it rumbles without my permission. Amy's expression fell. She went under the blanket and snuggled into Mag's arms. She closed her eyes comfortably, and said, it's so warm and comfortable. Meow. Ugly Duckling also went under the blanket, and lay on Mag's stomach like a soft and warm quilt. Mag lowered his head to look at the little one's cute face as he smilingly asked, say it, what do you want to have for breakfast? Father will make it for you. It's so itchy. Amy snuggled into Mag's arms, and let out peals of bell-like laughter. After breakfast, Mag sent Amy to school on his bicycle. He rode slower to take a couple looks at that tea house when he passed by it. It looked no different from usual. Didn't the operation already begin? Mag thought, but looking at Rena's expression in the morning, she mostly probably wasn't harassed last night. Hence, he didn't give it much thought. He wasn't worried about Grey Temple not holding up their end of the promise. That fellow was very problematic. As long as the Grey Temple put in the effort to investigate, they would definitely find something. A man who was trying very hard to whitewash himself would prize his reputation the most. And, he would be the most afraid the stuff that he had hidden would be dug out again. Mag had a lot of methods to handle such a person. If the Grey Temple didn't work, he could still go to the City Lord's castle. There were plenty of platforms and plenty of big bosses. Father, it will be our term break a few days later, and Anna and I have already rehearsed our performance for the variety show. Can you and Mother come and watch us perform that day? Amy expectantly asked Mag when she alighted at the school's gates. We will all come. Mag smilingly nodded. The Chaos School would have their winter break next week, and Amy and Anna had spent a lot of time at the variety show's rehearsals, so of course he wasn't going to miss it. As for Irina, he believed she wouldn't reject it, either. Fantastic! I love you all! Amy threw herself into Mag's arms as he crouched down. Then, she waved at him, and went into the school by herself. Good morning, Mr. Mag. Luna happened to return after having her breakfast outside. She smiled at Mag, who was looking into the school. You sent Amy to school, right? Good morning, Teacher Luna. I just sent her here. Mag turned and greeted Luna with a smile too. I wonder if Amy told you about the term-end party next Friday? We have invited the parents to come with their children, so I wonder if you will be free to join us. Luna asked. She knew Mamie restaurant was very busy, and Mag might not be able to come. Yes. Amy has already told me, and I will come to watch the show. After all, they have spent a lot of time rehearsing. Mag nodded with a smile. All right. See you again then. I need to go and prepare for my lessons now. Luna nodded at Mag and walked into the school. Mr. Mag indeed loved Amy very much. He was still willing to come despite his busy schedule. However, what arrangements should we make for her? Mag rode toward the restaurant, but he began to worry about the problem of Irina's identity. After all, in the eyes of others, he was Amy's single father. The mother character had never appeared in their life. Meanwhile, with Irina's identity and fame, she would be the center of everyone's attention no matter where she went. If their family of 3 appeared at the party together that day, it would be equal to telling the world who he was. Although he was also looking forward to that day when they could openly live together as a family, going out and having fun together, he wasn't powerful enough yet. His 9th tier level, together with his powerful sword techniques, had made sure that his power had entered into the very top realm of the Norland continent. However, the enemies that he needed to face were simply too powerful. His current capabilities weren't enough to protect Amy and Irina from harm. Once exposed, he would attract the combined attack of numerous enemies. When he concealed his identity, he was the powerful dragon slayer knight, Alex. This mysteriousness was enough to put all his enemies in awe. Before he completely recovered his power, he could only continue to hide his identity. Of course, if it wasn't necessary, he would also like to continue wearing the mask when he appeared as Alex even after he recovered his full power. After removing the mask, he could be the boss of Mamie Restaurant Mag. He wanted his customers to come from afar because they heard that the restaurant's boss made excellent dishes, and not because they wanted to taste the dishes cooked by the world's #1 knight. Seems like I have to get an appropriate identity for her, Mag murmured to himself softly as he rode away. Boss, you're so bad. It's all your fault. Connie looked at him aggrievedly as soon as he returned to the restaurant. She spoke as if she was pregnant with his child. Mag looked at her with a perplexed expression. Ever since you set up that gentleman's league, I can no longer find any work. Gentlemen are indeed all perverts. Connie angrily said. Those baddies are supposed to be all mine, and now they are all taken away from me. Mag didn't know if he should laugh or cry. The Gentleman's League had indeed taken care of most of the perverts in Chaos City. However, they did take away many of Connie's training resources. He smilingly said, those useless idiots no longer have any training effects for you. We still have a few days' time, you'd better go look for your master to learn about more sophisticated assassination techniques. If you want to kill your enemies personally, your current power is still far from adequate. Really? Connie was taken aback. After pondering, she nodded. All right, I will go look for my master, and ask him to teach me new techniques. Mag didn't bother with her anymore. His gaze fell on Anna, who was staring out of the window in a daze. He walked over, and gently said to her, Don't worry, Blower will definitely come back. But, they have all returned. Why didn't he come back? Anna looked up at Mag with worry in her eyes. Perhaps he was held up by something on his way back. I already asked someone to search for information on him. As long as we find him, we will go get him back, Mag consoled her. He was indeed a little worried that Blower hadn't returned to the restaurant. It was most probably because of his father. Hence, he specially asked Michael and Roland to help search for Blower's whereabouts when he met them previously. Up till now, they still hadn't received any news. What they could confirm was that he wasn't in the grasp of the Wind Forest at least. They didn't know where he was currently. Anna answered softly, but she still continued to stare out of the window in a daze. Mag reached out to pat Anna's head gently. He flicked a glance at the clock, and then walked to the door. Mag opened the door with a smile, and said, Welcome to Mamie Restaurant. Another busy day began again. If it weren't for those garish chimneys, Mag would think he had walked into an artistic garden. Of course, the combination of the chimneys and wooden factories also showed a striking contrast. What are you doing here? Irina, who had come to the factory early in the morning, asked Mag, who had just walked into the office, with surprise. "I come to check on the building progress of our palaces of art." Mag chuckled. "Aren't they factories?" Irina pushed open the windows. Her office was on the 5th floor, and she could see all the factories around here. Perhaps only the elves could build such exquisite factories. Mag also walked to the window to gaze at those almost completely wooden factories. The perfect marriage of industry and nature amazed him. "I have a question for you." Irina pointed at those textile factories' chimneys giving out black smoke and frowned. "The smoke that is produced after burning coal is toxic, and has a very bad influence on the plants and animals. I think we shouldn't continue to release smoke like this or promote it at a grand scale." Mag watched the black smoke emitted from those protruding chimneys fly toward the blue sky and taint it. He didn't expect he would still get caught by the Environmental Protection Agency in the alternate world for random discharge. However, looking at this scene, Mag was reminded of England during the First Industrial Revolution. Those protruding chimneys proudly declared the arrival of the steam age. However, humans still had to pay for all their actions. The environment deteriorated, the diseases ravaged, and the sky was no longer blue. Suddenly, he began to doubt his rash decision of bringing the steam engine to this world. If this world entered into the steam age because of his intervention, was it beneficial or harmful to this world where magic existed? Mag couldn't have a confirmed answer now, nor did he have the ability to run a complete deduction, but he was sure that if the steam engines were to popularize and develop without an order, the blue sky would be lost forever. "This is indeed a headache." Mag nodded. Coal that was not treated gave out a huge amount of exhaust after being burned. The elves were always close to nature, so of course they were very sensitive to that. "I will do an initial processing for the coal, and desulfurize the smoke to reduce toxic gas emissions," Mag said after a moment of silence. "How much can we reduce?" Irina asked. "Currently, the methods that we could use are limited. We can remove about half of it," Mag replied after thinking for a while. "All right. I will handle the remaining half." Irina smiled. "I was still thinking how to handle the other half. Now, we'll be able to achieve non-toxic emissions." Mag stared at Irina with surprise. "I planted a lot of the plant called absorbing grass in the new chimneys. It can grow in a very extreme environment, and has a very strong absorbing and purifying ability. I have tested it. It could effectively purify half of the toxic gases in a 50 meters long chimney, and then transform it into a harmless material." "There is something like that." Mag was really shocked by it. A super powerful biological detoxification method which could achieve a 50% detoxification effect just planting a kind of grass in the chimney. This grass was really born for detoxification. "Is this why you wanted to build the factories yourself?" Mag asked. He had previously suggested getting the dwarves to come build the factories as they were very efficient and precise, but Irina had rejected it. "Yes." Irina nodded. She gazed down at those busy elves down there, and said with a sense of mission, "We believe in the God of life and the nature that nurtures us. We also love the existence of other lives. We definitely couldn't accept gaining wealth through the destruction or oppression of nature. However, the metals which could move after burning the coal are not just used in our factories, right?" Irina turned to look at Mag. "Yes. This is a collaborative project between me, Miss Shear, and the City Lord. The initial motive was to introduce the steam engine trains, and then utilize the steam engines into the production so we could increase the productivity." Mag nodded. These few factories could be considered as pilot programs. Large-scale and widespread promotion most probably would not take too long. The steam engines would sweep across the world, and drag it into the age of steam. "Can you control it?" No. Mag shook his head. Nobody could stop the high-efficiency solutions from replacing the low-efficiency ones. He had already released the monster, the steam engine. He no longer had the power to keep it away. Irina furrowed her brows tightly. However, maybe I could make them reduce the emissions and reduce the harm done to nature, Mag replied after a brief moment of pondering. But, it is still harming nature. Irina continued to frown. Mag fell into a silence. Although he believed it was inevitable, just as Irina said, less harm done was still harm done. The humans were not able to love and treasure nature and lives like elves. Is it alright if Amy can never see a blue sky like this one day? Mag suddenly felt his heart constrict. Amy had a soul that was as pure as an elf's. She loved nature and all lives fiercely just like the elves. She would definitely be crushed if the blue sky and fluffy clouds were to disappear one day. I will try my best to stop this day from coming, Mag promised solemnly. I will do that together with you. Irina smiled at Mag. Mag looked down at those green factories and smiled. That would be much easier. Boss, we couldn't get any information at all. The people who were arrested last night are still being held up. Even the girls from the brothels were not released. The manager nervously peeped at the grave-looking Bennett. Who the heck is messing with me? Bennett slammed his palm on the coffee table with a dark expression. Who was able to mobilize such a large-scale Grey Temple's operation? He couldn't remember when he had ever made such a terrifying enemy. Could it be that Mamie Restaurant's beau? It cannot be him. Bennett shook his head with conviction. Mag wasn't even in the top 100 on his list of enemies. He was just a chef. What power and status would he possibly have to make the Grey Temple mess with him? However, since the gambling dens and brothels are all gone, it seems like I have to take some serious actions now. Bennett got up, picked up the hat at the side, and put it on. In a low voice, he said, I will go see Miss Rena again. The hot pot restaurant can do without her, but we have to get the formula. Mag dead flaw. Sheer sat up straight immediately. Her relaxed expression immediately became solemn and intense. Yes. Mag nodded with conviction. With an equally solemn expression, he continued, if we continue to mass-produce and utilize the steam engines according to the current design, we would cause an immeasurable catastrophic impact on the entire world in the future. We could even cause the extinction of all life forms. Sheer was shocked. After thinking about it seriously, she hesitantly asked, a small steam engine is going to cause the extinction of all life forms on the Norland continent? If the use of steam engines gets out of control, such a situation is entirely possible. Mag nodded. I would appreciate further details, Sheer said. You knew that I happened to recruit a batch of elves who just came to Chaos City when my factory was just completed. Furthermore, I was fortunate to get to know Princess Irina. Because she had a huge number of elves under her, and I also wanted to try to diversify, we established a deeper partnership, built a series of factories in the north of the city, and began to utilize the steam engines. Yes. The Night Elves affair in Chaos City recently wasn't a secret, and Mr. Mag had also created quite a stir in the business world by being the first to establish a business partnership with Princess Irina. Sheer nodded with a smile. The issue of Mag and Irina building factories together in the north of the city was widely discussed in the business circles. After all, that was a labor force that consisted of 20,000 elves who had all had a keen mind and dexterous hands, and everyone wanted a part of that. However, they didn't expect that before they could receive any replies for the invitations for collaborations, the news of Irina working with Mamie Restaurant's boss already got out. They were going to carry out diversified cooperation on the foundation of one small textile factory. Moreover, the city lord's castle supported their move by selling them a piece of land to be used for the factories at a low price. Although Irina looked rather wretched after escaping from the Wind Forest with the Night Elves, she was Irina after all. She was a powerful and legendary elven princess. She returned victoriously after battling against 6 opponents on that rainy night in Rodu. At first, no one believed she could lead the hundreds of Night Elves to repel the sudden attack of Borg and the Wind Forest. In the end, Alex and she slew a Borg, and repelled the Wind Forest's allied forces, proving many people wrong. Then, she crashed the Wind Forest's conferring ceremony alone, and raised a fight for freedom that shocked the whole continent. She led the escape of the elves who were arrested, and another 20,000 slave elves, out of the soul-binding Wind Forest. This was Irina. She was a woman that you couldn't ignore no matter what situation she was in. Even though she was in Chaos City now, with only 20,000 weak elven slaves, nobody could say for sure that the Wind Forest wouldn't belong to her in the future. As a woman who was also highly praised, Sheer still believed there was no way she could be on par with Irina right now. Their outlook and the things they did had a very wide gap in level. Hence, collaborating with her now was a gamble on the future. A chance to collaborate with the elves. Even Buffett Bank was planning on how to negotiate with Irina before Mag suddenly appeared to take the prize. A restaurant's owner took Irina and the 20,000 elves. The entire Chaos City's business circles erupted into chaos after this news got out. After all, in the eyes of those powerful businessmen with tons of connections, Mag was just a chef who could cook wonderful dishes. Perhaps he won over Princess Irina with his scrumptious food? Sheer was also rather shocked about that news at first, but she soon let it go. After all, Mag was the man who invented the steam engine and successfully collaborated with Buffett Bank with only a drawing and a roughly made sample. If this news got out, it would perhaps cause quite a big hoo-ha too. The steam engine was the future, and Sheer wasn't doubtful about that at all. Now, Mag was saying that the steam engine could destroy humanity's future. What did this have to do with Irina? Mag solemnly said to Sheer, "In my collaboration with Princess Irina, she has given me feedback that the steam engines gave out a large amount of toxic gas during the process of burning coal. If this toxic gas was released into the air without any treatment, it would cause deadly damage to living beings after it accumulated to a certain amount and affected the environment. Once steam engines are widely popularized, coal will become the source of energy that is most commonly used in this world. Huge amounts of toxic gases will be released into the air, and soon this world will be filled with the toxic gases in the air, and our future will be pitch dark. Is it that serious?" Sheer frowned. Now that she recalled, she always had a feeling that she couldn't breathe properly every time she went to inspect the base. The black smoke had indeed made her uncomfortable after she breathed it in. In this area, Princess Irina's opinions should be authoritative. No one knows nature and lives better than her. Mag shrugged. Sheer nodded, agreeing with Mag's point of view. After all, apart from the Elven Queen, Princess Irina was the only elf guarded by the Tree of Life. Then, how should we handle this flaw? Sheer asked Mag. She wanted her name to be engraved into Norland continent's history in the future, but not by being called the Devil's Releaser one day in the future. However, she also wasn't willing to give up on the steam engines. This was an invention that was going to change the layout of the Norland continent and a chance for Buffett Bank to cross into another realm and become the leader. We need to solve the problem of the release of the toxic gas, and increase technical barriers on the steam engines to make its promotions and developments orderly so that we could greatly reduce the harm on the nature brought upon by the use of the steam engines. We have to be responsible for this world's future. Mag took out a drawing, and pushed it in front of Sheer gently. I have already come out with the preliminary solution. However, we need Miss Sheer's and the City Lord's Castle's full cooperation when we implement it. Sheer picked up the drawing to read through it carefully. She would sometimes frown, or her eyes would light up. She only put down the drawing in her hands about 10 minutes later, impressed, and said, "It's my honor to collaborate with someone like Mr. Mag." Mr. Mag's sense of responsibility is equally impressive. Sheer smiled as she looked at Mag with the same appreciation. Mag didn't want to remain here and continue praising each other. He was also very sure that Sheer was 100 times busier than him, so he swiftly concluded the topic. After asking Sheer to communicate with the City Lord's castle, and then inform him for a formal 3-party docking, he returned to the restaurant. "Boss, Rena is missing." Yabimiya came up to Mag urgently as soon as he returned to the restaurant. She's not at the dormitory, either. Normally, she would come to the restaurant to prepare for the hot pot by now. Could the man from the tea house have grasped her? I have checked on that tea house. Rena isn't there, Elizabeth said. Could that fellow be so stupid? How dare he even kidnap her? Mag furrowed his eyebrows, and his expression became cold. Mag flicked a glance at his watch. It was already 4 o'clock. He went out with his bicycle, and at the same time said, I'm going out for a while. If I'm not back by 4:30 p.m., we will cancel dinner service. I'll go with you, Elizabeth said in a cold voice, and then followed after Mag. We will go with you too. We will go save Rena. Yabimaya, Bablat and the rest also followed him out angrily. They displayed great anger at the fact that someone actually dared to kidnap their companion. Amy happened to return to the restaurant with her school bag on her back, and saw Mag and the ladies who were about to leave. She let go of Krasu's hand, jogged over, and curiously asked, Father, where are you all going? Mag looked at Amy with surprise before looking at Krasu. Why is little Amy back so early today? Boss Mag, I have something urgent today, so I have to send little Amy back 30 minutes earlier. I got to go. Krasu urgently left on 2 fireballs after saying that. Rena was kidnapped by Batas, and we're going to rescue her now. Are you going to come with us, Amy? Yabimaya asked Amy. Amy nodded with worry on her face. Big sister Rena must be in great danger now. Let's go and save her. I am very fierce at beating up Batas. Mag looked at all of them filled with righteous rage with resignation and gratification. After pondering for a while, he said, All right, let's split up. I'm going to find out where Rena could be. You ladies go watch around the dormitory and tea house to see if there is any news. If I get any news, I will come back and take action together with you. Him. Everyone nodded as they followed after Mag's arrangement. Mag left on his bicycle. He had wanted to act alone at first, but after thinking about it, Mia and the gang also wanted to show their concern for Rena. Furthermore, they could get rid of the other party easily with Elizabeth, an 8th tier frost dragon, taking charge. He didn't even have to find an excuse to cover it up afterward. The bicycle stopped at the Grey Temple's back door. My employee is missing. It should be connected to Bennett Marquis. I hope Grey Temple could explain to me how she could have gone missing under your people's watch. Mag asked Borg with a serious expression. Seems like it's the people who guard her that are a problem. Borg also frowned when he heard that. With a serious expression, he continued, Don't worry. We, Grey Temple, will find her quickly and send her back safely. It's fine. I just need you to tell me where she is, and we will get her back ourselves. Mag shook his head. Borg stared at Mag silently for a while before nodding. All right. Give me 20 minutes, and I will tell you her location. He turned and left immediately after saying that. Mag waited at the door for approximately 15 minutes before Borg returned and passed a note to him. She is at this location right now. Thank you. Mag threw a glance at that note. On it was written, the basement in the small courtyard at the end of the 13th lane in the west of the city. He then left on his bicycle. Seems like the Grey Temple needs to do thorough internal cleansing too. How dare they interfere with the chief of the intelligence department's affair. Borg went in with a dark expression. Now you have 2 choices. One is to write out the hot pot's recipe honestly. I will let you go after I make sure that it's correct. The other is to die in this basement with humiliation. Perhaps someone is going to find a naked body here many years later. Bennett, who sat on a chair with legs crossed, said in a low voice to Rena, who was tied to a pole. Only an oil lamp was lit at the stone wall in the dark basement. Apart from Rena, who was tied to the pole, and Bennett, there were another 2 orcs and 3 strapping men. Hee hee. The orcs and strapping men all began to smile with evil intentions as their gazes roamed up and down Rena's body unscrupulously. Although this maiden looked weak, she was still rather good-looking. "Why, you people are committing a crime!" Rena struggled to back off, but both her hands and feet were tightly bound. She was on her way to the restaurant earlier, and she suddenly lost consciousness after she smelled a strange fragrance. She found herself in this basement after she regained consciousness. She didn't even know where she was. The ropes that were tightly bound and those evil smiling strapping men caused a thick fear and helplessness to creep up Rena's heart slowly. Since Bennett didn't bother to hide his identity, this meant she wasn't going to leave this cellar alive today. Fear didn't make her lose her rationality. Instead, she calmed down after she was certain of that. She was going to die with dignity if she was definitely going to die. She didn't want to die with humiliation at the hands of these fellows. "I can write out the hot pots recipe for you, but you've got to promise you will never come and harass me again," Rena said to Bennett. Bennett's eyes lit up, and he uncrossed his legs. He began to smile warmly as he nodded. "Sure. As long as the formula is correct, not only will I not make things difficult for you and your mother, I will even give you a huge reward that will make you wealthy for the rest of your lives." "All right, I will write it out for you." Rena nodded. "Release Miss Rena, and then bring the pen and paper over," Bennett smilingly said. Two orcs came forward to untie Rena's hands, and gave her the pen and paper. Rena thought about it briefly, and began writing on the paper. All the names of spices and condiments were written with her neat and tidy handwriting. "I didn't expect this lass to wisen up. It's such a waste. If she had agreed to my terms 2 nights ago, she wouldn't have ended up like this." Bennett's smile got brighter as he looked at the increasingly interesting recipe. As long as the hot pot restaurant could open, he wouldn't have to worry about money. Just as the people in the cellar gradually relaxed while they watched Rena write the recipe calmly, Rena suddenly turned the pen around and stabbed it toward her throat. "Grab her!" Bennett's expression changed instantly. However, just as the tip of the pen was 1 centimeter away from Rena's throat, Rena's hand was caught by the orc next to her. His other hand took the pen, crushed it, and tossed it onto the ground. "How dare you fool me? You have no idea whom you are dealing with." Bennett's face darkened, and he kicked Rena's stomach. He saw Rena struggling to grab that broken pen and waved his hand. "Let her have a taste of what is worse than death itself." "Hee hee. Allow me." That orc, who was 2 heads taller than a normal person, walked toward Rena with a smirk, and reached out to grab Rena's hair. Crack! Crack! Right then, sounds of ice forming could be heard. Frost suddenly appeared on the cellar's walls, and rapidly spread to the floor and toward their feet. At that moment, when everyone was stunned, the frost had already reached their feet, and was already spreading quickly up their legs. "It's ice magic! Someone's here," the orc exclaimed as the first one to react. Bennett was also shocked. He pointed at Rena, and shouted, "Capture her, we'll leave using the secret passageway." The orc smashed the fairly thin frost around his legs with a stomp, and reached towards Rena's collar. However, his movements had become much slower. Meanwhile, Bennett was already making way towards the open secret passageway with the help of another orc. "Is someone here to save me?" Rena was equally stunned, but her eyes shone brightly. She subconsciously took a step backward. Bam! Just then, the cellar's stone door exploded into tiny fragments as though it had been dealt a heavy blow. The tiny pieces of crushed stone, however, suddenly froze at that moment, hovering in the air eerily as though someone had pressed on the pause button. "Take this!" Just then, a small red silhouette jumped out through the crushed stones, and kicked the orc in his face. A wind-fire wheel was pressed on the orc's face, and a burning smell wafted over. The temperature and strength made the orc's face twist. He flew backward uncontrollably, and smashed into the wall behind him. Amy landed on the ground and looked with concern at Rena, who was sitting on the floor with her arms wrapped around her tummy, asking, "Big Sister Rena, are you all right?" "Amy!" Rena was surprised and overjoyed to see Amy suddenly appear. She almost could not believe her eyes. Trying to run away, Babla appeared at the entrance of the cellar, and looked at the several people who were scurrying towards the secret passageway. She waved her hand, and the smashed stones that were suspended in mid-air flew towards the secret passageway. Before those several people could even enter the secret passageway, the exit was already completely blocked. The orc that was helping Bennett lifted an arm and smashed the rocks. What followed was the sound of shattering and the orc holding his deformed hand as he took 2 steps back. A 7th tier spatial magic caster. The orc looked at Babla in shock and fear. Now that the secret passageway was blocked, Bennett turned back to look at the ladies that had arrived successively through the cellar door, followed by Mag, who was very well protected at the back. The veins on his forehead popped out as he pondered in shock. How did they find this place? He'd already avoided all the spies from the Grey Temple, and kidnapped Rena very stealthily to this cellar that almost no one knew about. What shocked him the most was that all these people were employees from Mamie Restaurant, but why was there a 7th tier spatial magic caster among them? Why would she settle for serving dishes in a restaurant if she was so capable, even having the rare ability of space distortion? His 2 strongest subordinates were captured in last night's ambush. Now, these 2 orcs were barely at the 6th tier. They were completely unable to defend themselves against a 7th tier spatial magic caster. That seemingly insignificant little 4 to 5-year-old half-elf girl was even more shocking. A 6th tier orc was easily sent flying by her single kick. With such horrifying capability at that age, she had to be that talent that made the 2 great magic casters want to make her their disciple. Bennett suddenly lost control of the entire situation, and his expression changed. He quickly put on a smile, and told Mag, "Hey, what brings you here, Boss Mag? I've only invited Bam." Before Bennett could finish his words, Yabimiya smacked his face with a pan that she pulled out from somewhere. She used so much force that he was embedded into the mud wall. Did he still have something else to say? Yabimiya asked embarrassedly as she kept the pan and looked at Bennett, who was knocked out. "It's all right. You did well, Mia." Mag looked at Bennett, who was still slightly dazed. He walked to Rena and helped her up as he said with concern, "It's all right. We're here. Boss, and everyone." Rena looked at everyone, and her eyes reddened. She thought that she would die right here today after all the humiliation and hopelessness. She didn't think that they would actually appear in the nick of time. Of course, what she didn't expect the most was that everyone was actually so powerful. Whether it was Amy, who sent the scary orc flying with 1 kick, or Babla, who could control the stones, and even Yabimiya, who could embed Bennett into the wall with a pan, their capabilities were all beyond her imagination. So Boss wasn't lying to her at all. She really had a strong restaurant behind her. "You're injured. We don't have a healing magic caster here, so we can only treat your wound simply first." Elizabeth went up to her, and took a look at Rena's abrasion on her pinky. She tapped at it gently with her finger, and a small stream of water flowed past the wound, cleaning all the sand and gravel on it. "We can go back very quickly." Mag handed Rena over to Gina while he walked towards Bennett. "Ah!" The 2 orcs and 3 strong men came dashing towards Mag as they shouted loudly. This fellow appeared the weakest out of them all. If they could get him under their control, they might have a chance to leave. "Ice seal." Elizabeth spat the 2 words out coldly. Crack! The frost on the ground slowly extended, automatically avoiding Mag's feet, towards the orcs and strong men, freezing them into ice sculptures. Bennett, who was dazed from being smacked by the pan, happened to regain his senses then. When he saw his subordinates turn into ice sculptures, his expression changed immediately. That ice beauty seemed even more powerful and horrifying than he thought. How many scary people are actually hiding in this restaurant? Why would they be willing to work for him? I've mentioned it. Don't touch my people. Otherwise, you will lose everything, Mag said coldly in front of Bennett. Why you cannot kill me? I am Bennett Marquis, the younger brother of the head of the Marquis family. Bennett said with fear written on his face. You're such a useless brother. You have no idea how much your older brother wishes that you could die earlier, Mag scoffed. Bennett's face turned pale. He knew very well that Mag spoke the truth. His big brother, just like him, hoped that the other party would die earlier every day. Mag raised a leg and kicked Bennett between his legs. The sound of something crushing echoed around the cellar together with a terrible scream. Don't worry. I won't kill you. As a law-abiding citizen, what I'm going to do is not to send you to God, but to leave you in the hands of the law. Mag retracted his leg and watched Bennett shrink into a ball on the ground as he twitched in pain. He slowly bent down, and said, after all, you haven't witnessed yourself losing everything important to you. Chapter 1512 Go, Little Fire Lotus. Don't worry, the lifetime membership in Basti prison is already open for him. He can only stay in the dark cell for the rest of his life and await his death. Mag paused in his tracks, and looked at Rena with a smile as he said, Rena, don't worry, he won't appear again. Rena looked at Mag's warm smile and felt the uneasiness disappear. She nodded, and said, That's so easy. I only whacked him once, and all the bad guys are settled. Amy felt a little unsatisfied. She looked back, and even cutely told Bennett, Hey, uncle, you got to buck up a little, okay? Bring more people along, otherwise you don't look impressive at all. That's really disappointing. Bennett looked up at Amy furiously. Is she kidding? Let's go. Mag brought the others out of the cellar, and climbed out from the abandoned well at the corner of the yard. Stand right there. You are already surrounded. All of you. Hands up and go to the corner of the wall. The moment Mag and the gang came out from the dried-up well, they heard someone shout at them, and a group of Grey Temple inspectors surrounded them. The knights drew their swords, and the magic casters pointed their wands at them as they got ready to attack. The leader was a tall and slim middle-aged man. He looked at Rena for a while before he solemnly said, I am Captain Blaze from Grey Temple Inspection Troop. All of you are involved in a kidnapping and assault case. Please cooperate with our investigation. Mag looked at Blaze through slightly squinted eyes. He thought the people waiting outside would be here to arrest Bennett and the others, but it seemed the communication within the Grey Temple was not very effective. This so-called captain was probably not under Borg. Smiling, Mag said, Sir, I wonder what made you think that we're involved in kidnapping and assault? Whom did we kidnap? Whom did we assault? Did someone report the case? You, Blaze was stumped for words. He looked at Mag for a while, not knowing what to say. He was also shocked by Bennett, that dumb teammate. He lured the inspectors away so that Bennett could escape, but that stupid guy actually targeted the restaurant employee, and even kidnapped her. That was fine since she was just an employee. He was already ready to wipe his *SS for him, but he didn't expect this matter to alarm the intelligence department. The person who was supposed to handle this matter never came back after he was called out, so he brought men and rushed over. He could already feel the strong magic waves from the cellar before he even reached the place. After that, he saw Mag and the gang come out. He could already guess what happened down there. While he was shocked that this restaurant owner could find such powerful aides, he also spontaneously decided to frame Mag otherwise. If Bennett was arrested, he would definitely buckle under their interrogation and rat on him. Blaze regained his composure quickly, and seriously said, We've received a report that the owner of the tea house Ben had gone missing, and before that, an employee from their shop heard you threatening him. The owner and employees of Mamie Restaurant, I am giving all of you a strict warning. All of you better stand properly against the wall and not resist the arrest. If you dare to go against the law, we will take the necessary actions. You, bring a team of people down to take a look. Blaze waved his hand, and a small team of 5 went down to the cellar. It's not like this. He was the one who kidnapped me, and boss and the rest came to my rescue. It's not like what you said, Rena explained anxiously. She felt so aggrieved that tears started welling up in her eyes. Wasn't the Grey Temple supposed to be the guardian angel of Chaos City? How could they malign people like that? Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent, but everything you say will be used in court as evidence. If you're suspected of defamation, that would be an added sentence. Blaze glared coldly at Rena. Don't worry. If we want to leave, they won't be able to stop us. Elizabeth stood in front of Rena and looked equally coldly at Blaze. Her icy cold aura made Blaze retract his gaze subconsciously. It was the 8th tier ice magic waves that she used previously. Not long later, the inspectors from the Grey Temple crawled out with the Pale Bennett and 5 other ice sculptures from the cellar. Save me! I was kidnapped by them, they killed my subordinates, and even wanted to kill me. Bennett's face was pale. He lifted a finger limply and pointed at Mag with clenched teeth as he said, He is the mastermind. The corner of Blaze's lips rose. He waved his hand as he said, Arrest all of them. Father, are these people bad as well? I remember that they are the ones who maintain the law and order, Amy whispered to Mag with doubt and also a little excitement. Maybe. Mag scoffed. Since they were already charged, adding a few crimes on top of the existing ones didn't matter. This captain was obviously on Bennett's side. If that's the case, there's no need to hold on to any hopes for them. Even though they had over 30 people on their side, with this Captain Blaze being an 8th tier knight and having several 7th tier magic casters, Mag was not very worried about the situation. Judging from how it looked, they could still easily win even if they were to really get into a fight. As for how this should be settled, that would be up to Roland and Borg. Then do we just beat them to death, or do we go according to the protocol? Amy asked. We are law-abiding citizens, after all. Let's go according to the protocol, Mag replied with a smile. Amy nodded. She took a step forward, pointed at them with her wand, and said, I am the little boss of Mamie Restaurant, the disciple of the Lord of Ice and Lord of Fire, a student from Chaos School. Let me now warn all of you to give up resisting and surrender. Otherwise, I'll punish you in the name of the moon. Although I don't know why the moon wants to punish you, I'll agree in the name of the moon, Babla added. Young lass, it's not a good thing to be overly confident. Even the Lord of Ice and Lord of Fire have to abide by the laws and rules of Chaos City and kneel before the Grey Temple. All of you are going to pay a heavy price for going against the Grey Temple and enforcing the law. Blaze laughed coldly. It would be great if they decided to resist because things would tend to go out of hand when violence was involved, and it would not be anything strange if there were a few deaths as a result. You should say that in front of my masters. Really? Amy suggested sincerely. Go, little fire lotus. Amy flung out more than 10 glass bottles containing 2 colored little fire lotuses from her magic caster's staff space, aiming straight at Blaze. Chapter 1513 Dare to Trifle with the Grey Temple. There is currently no evidence to prove that Godala is involved in this case. Borg shook his head before continuing, but he had been in charge of the inspection troops all this while. Roland put the letter down, and ordered Borg, bring men over to settle this matter. Don't alarm Krasua and Urian. Things will get complicated once they get involved. Bring Blaze back and find out how many others are related to this incident. Yes. Borg nodded and quickly left. Tap tap tap. Roland tapped on the table gently, seemingly deep in thought. After a long while, he stood up slowly and walked towards the door. Godala, you'd better don't disappoint me, explode, little fire lotus. As Amy commanded, the 2 colored fire lotuses in the bottles she threw exploded. Blaze's expression changed, losing its initial calmness. He wielded his sword forward and spit the fireball coming at him in half, while at the same time taking several steps back to avoid the flickering tongues. Going against the law enforcers. That's another crime. Subdue them. Blaze shouted before quickly adding, don't hurt that kid. He might say that he was not afraid, but he really didn't want to suffer from the rage of the Lord of Ice and Lord of Fire. The two of them were, after all, really powerful. They were a source of headache even for the Lord of the Grey Temple. He wouldn't dare to ruffle their feathers. The people from the Grey Temple started attacking Mag and the ladies upon receiving the instruction. The knights dashed in front, while beams of light shot out from the magic casters' wands at the people from Mamie Restaurant. Elizabeth took a step forward, and softly chanted, "Ice and frost." The temperature in the yard dropped suddenly, and a pale blue magic field appeared around them, blocking the magic attacks out. Elizabeth raised her hand, and frost started speeding towards the knights, extending up from their legs to their bodies. They were almost instantly turned into blocks of ice, freezing in place with their horrified expressions preserved. I respect Chaos City's laws and rules because they bring dignity and safety to the weak. However, if the law enforcers are a bunch of scum, that would be too much of an irony. Elizabeth walked out from the magic shield as she moved closer to Blaze step by step with disappointment in her eyes. Darn! Blaze's expression changed. He underestimated this woman's capabilities. He looked down and saw the frozen ground under his feet. His eyelids twitched. As an 8th-tier knight, he knew very well what it meant when he stepped into her realm. A giant dragon specializing in spatial distortion. That was very difficult to handle. If I didn't guess wrongly, you should be the Frost Dragon Tribe's Princess Elizabeth. If you don't want the Frost Dragon Tribe to be on bad terms with Chaos City, you'd better know what you're doing now, and know if you're pushing the boundaries of the Grey Temple and Chaos City. Blaze said sternly. Whatever you're doing has already crossed my boundaries, Elizabeth said coldly. She took a step forward, and suddenly disappeared. When she reappeared, her right hand, which was covered in frost dragon scales, had already landed a punch on Blaze's face. Bam! The punch sent Blaze flying immediately. He only managed to stop himself after digging his long sword into the wall, creating a 5-meter-long gash. However, before he could steady himself, a foot covered in dragon scales appeared and kicked his lower abdomen, sending him flying again. Elizabeth kept disappearing and appearing in the frost realm, thrashing Blaze easily. The rest, who were already prepared for the fight, watched in shock with their mouths and eyes wide open. Big Sister Elizabeth is so powerful. Connie swallowed. She suddenly felt embarrassed of her own assassination which she prided herself on. Big Sister is so powerful. Yabimiya was also stunned. Although she had always known that Elizabeth was very powerful, she never knew she was this powerful. Sigh. I have no share in this baddie again. Amy sighed a little unhappily. She started to rub her little fireballs secretly, throwing one at Blaze from time to time. Is she so powerful in her realm? Mag was also a little shocked. The fighters were both at the 8th tier, but an 8th-tier knight was thrashed by Elizabeth in her realm without being able to fight back at all. The talent of a Frost Dragon tribe's royalty was indeed awe-inspiring. Of course, that did not mean that she was undefeatable. As long as you were fast on your feet and sword, and had enough capabilities, you'd be able to slash into any realm. Just like how Alex slashed open Lance's Frost realm, which was known to be the strongest realm, and proceeded to thrash that dragon. Mag was naturally very happy that Elizabeth alone was enough to settle the problem. If he had to fight, it might cause some unnecessary troubles. He would definitely stay still if he could. Blaze was badly beaten up in the Frost realm, and his face was crushed into the ice, leaving the lower half of his body above ground. The ice quickly covered up the hole, and he turned into an ice sculpture. Elizabeth landed on the ground gently and raised her hand. Immediately, the Frost realm disappeared, leaving only a yard full of ice sculptures. Ice sculpture Bennett was staring with his eyes wide open, as though he could not believe his eyes. These fellows even dare to trifle with the Grey Temple. This, Borg arrived with the intelligence department at that moment. When he saw the scene, he was bewildered. "Are you with him?" Elizabeth turned back and saw Borg. She felt danger coming from this human. He was a 9th-tier powerhouse, much more powerful than Fox. "No, no, you've misunderstood." Borg quickly waved his hands. He looked at Mag, and said, "Boss Mag, we heard that someone had kidnapped your restaurant's employee, so we came over to save her. That's different from what we heard just now. After all, we were the bandits who kidnapped a rich merchant, and were going through a very strict interrogation from the Grey Temple," Mag told Borg with an ostensible smile. "Serves him right." Borg glanced at Blaze and Bennett, who were frozen, and squinted. He really did his best when it came to ruining the reputation of the Grey Temple and the justice it aimed to uphold. "My apologies. The Grey Temple will give all of you an explanation on this matter. I guarantee that the Grey Temple will deal with those that displayed questionable conduct strictly, and bring the real culprit to justice." Mag looked at Borg, and solemnly said, "I hope this will not happen again. After all, the citizens of Chaos City rely on the Grey Temple's law enforcement for protection. If we can't even trust the Grey Temple, it will not be long before the system that the city prides itself on collapses. I've already reported this incident to the Lord of the Grey Temple. Those involved will be dealt with severely to ensure the fairness and power of the Grey Temple." Borg nodded. Judging from how much the Lord of the Grey Temple respected Mag, the latter could not be an ordinary restaurant owner. Besides, what he just mentioned was what worried him as well. "Elizabeth, let them take over from here on," Mag told Elizabeth, whose back was facing him. Elizabeth hesitated for a while, but still put her hand down. The chill in the air disappeared all of a sudden, but the ice statues did not thaw. Borg heaved a sigh of relief. He looked at Rena for a while, and noticed that she was holding her tummy. He said, "Medic, treat this young lady." "Yes." A female magic caster came forward, and checked Rena's injuries. After that, she started chanting a spell, sending a few waves of white light onto Rena. Rena's pale face finally regained some color, and her knitted brows eased out. "Thank you. I'm all better," Rena thanked the magic caster. It felt a little miraculous. It was her first time being treated with healing magic, and it was wondrous. Princess Irina and big sister Zixi had also treated her mother with such powerful healing magic. Mag looked a little more relieved seeing that Rena had been healed, and was not so angry at the Grey Temple's unprofessionalism. After that, he brought all of them out. "Sir, don't we have to take their statements?" a small official asked softly. "If you're not afraid of Krasua and Urian tearing the Grey Temple apart after finding out that their beloved disciple got attacked, and the attacker was even from the Grey Temple, go ahead," Borg spat out as he walked towards Blaze. Then, the official took a deep breath of cold air in and shrank. "Let's forget it. The intelligence department doesn't really need any witnesses. The culprits are the best witnesses. Boss, I'm sorry we had to delay the restaurant's opening hours because of me," Rena mumbled reproachfully as she walked behind with her head hanging low. Night had already fallen. It was too late to operate tonight. Mag, who was holding Amy's little hand, suddenly stopped and turned around. Rena, who was following behind, was caught off guard, and walked right into him. Luckily, Mag blocked her with his hand, so she did not hit his chest. "It's all right if we can't open for the night. You don't have to vent your anger on me," Mag said with a smile. Everyone laughed along. "Arg," Rena took 2 steps back embarrassedly. Her face and ears were red. As she looked at the group of smiling people, who did not seem to blame her at all, she felt a stinging sensation in her nose, and her eyes reddened. "I'm sorry, Rena. This incident happened because of the hot pot soup base recipe. I caused you to be targeted, and it was also because of my carelessness that you were endangered." Mag looked at Rena in the eye, and seriously said, "I am very touched by your character, and I admire it a lot. However, I hope that if something similar happens in the future, promise me, nothing is more important than you are. Boss, Rena could not hold her tears in. She ran into Mag's embrace, and let out all the emotions that she had been suppressing: grievance, fear, gratefulness. She had been a very timid person since she was young, growing up with her mother in fear in the slums. She had been trying her best to live her insignificant life while protecting her mother. She did tiring and laborious jobs for meager pay, and grew as lowly as the dust and dirt amidst her employer's scoldings. But right now, when she was put in a hopeless situation, just as she thought she was about to die, Boss, Amy, Mia, and the rest appeared. They stood in front of her and defeated all the baddies, and were even concerned about her. That was when she knew that there were people other than her mother who actually cared for her. That there would still be someone who would tell her that she was more important. On the dark, chilly, long street, Mag patted the young girl on her back gently. He could understand the fear she was feeling after going through such an ordeal. Letting it all out might make her feel better. Mia and the rest stood silently, blocking out the chilly wind on the long street. Big sister Rena, don't cry. We're all a family. If there's any badda who dares to bully you again, little Amy will beat them up. Amy tugged gently at Rena's sleeve and tiptoed as she passed her a purple floral handkerchief. Yes. The restaurant is just like our home, and we're all a family, Yabimiya said with a sincere smile. Everyone had a similar smile on their faces. To them, the restaurant was indeed a very special place. Rena received the handkerchief and looked at Amy, and then at everyone else. She tried to hold back her tears and nodded. We're all a family. Let's go. If we don't go back, the customers are going to tear the restaurant down. It's rude that we didn't even put up a notice in advance, Mag said with a smile. He walked to a bigger road and flagged a horse-drawn carriage, and then he got Mia and the rest to send Rena home first while he brought Amy, Gina, and some others back to the restaurant on a second horse-drawn carriage. When they were almost at the restaurant, Mag could already feel the rage from all the chowhounds. Boss Mag! Open up! We're starving. If you don't open up, we'll die right here. Did this Boss Mag do something heinous? Why are there so many people causing a ruckus? The coachman muttered under his breath curiously. No, he was just held up by something, so he was a little late to open his restaurant. Mag coughed softly as he tried to hide his embarrassment. Delayed opening? Serves him right. The coachman laughed at his misfortune. Back then, when I could still wield a knife, I was still a presentable person until I started standing my customers up. Look at my right hand and left leg. They were maimed. Mag glanced at his bent left leg and awkward right hand, and shuddered. They're not to be trifled with. Not at all. Chapter 1515 Vampires eat things raw precisely because they can't cook. Boss Mag is over there. Someone spotted Mag very quickly, and with his shout, all eyes were on Mag. Boss Mag, we demand an explanation from you. An explanation won't do. We will need at least 2 bowls of tofu pudding. Humph. Boss Mag, I brought my whole family here for hot pot. You're not going to stand us up tonight, are you? The crowd exploded with complaints and dissatisfaction for waiting so long outside. The coachman turned to look at Mag. He did not expect this situation. Actually, Mag looked at the agitated customers, and attempted to explain today's situation. A strong lady lining up in front waved her hand, and interrupted Mag. All right. Speak no more. Just go back and cook. Yes, 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 hurry along. The customers all agreed. They almost picked him up, and stuffed him into the restaurant. Because of all the enthusiastic customers, Mag really could not bring himself to announce that the restaurant would be closed for the night. He thought for a while and nodded, saying, all right, please wait 10 minutes. Our restaurant will start its operation soon. However, because we didn't do any preparations beforehand, we won't have many of the dishes on the menu, including hot pot, which requires us to prepare the soup base beforehand. Sigh, there was a sudden sigh from the crowd. All right, I'm happy as long as you open for business, someone muttered begrudgingly, and a group of people immediately nodded in agreement. Be good, okay. Don't cause trouble. If you do, I'll beat your heads off, Amy said with a gentle smile as she jumped out of the carriage. The crowd was suddenly silent. They wanted to laugh, and at the same time wanted to cause a ruckus, but they were also worried that the little boss might be serious, so they could only hold it in. That's it. That coachman was shocked when he saw the calm customers. How can this batch of customers be like this? Customers back then weren't like this at all. Thank you, sir, Mag thanked the coachman, and carried Amy to the restaurant. Gina and Ferris also alighted. My masters didn't come today, Amy exclaimed as she turned back to look at the long line. Maybe they have something on today. Mag was a little shocked as well. Crassus said that he had to drop Amy off early because he had something on. Urian was not around, either. Maybe the two had gone out to duel. Mag opened the door, put Amy down, and told Ferris, start preparing the ingredients for tonight. Skip the dishes that require a long cooking time, I've already prepared the ingredients. Where did you all go? A gentle resentful voice sounded. Mag looked towards the kitchen, and saw Camilla standing by the door with a malcontent look. Yet. You left us at home without anything to eat. Irina also came out from the kitchen, and leaned against the other side of the door. With disappointment, she said, the food she makes is horrible. Indeed, vampires eat things raw precisely because they can't cook. That's not true, Camilla's face flushed red. She embarrassedly said, we just got better things to spend our time on. Time is very precious for vampires. Mag looked at Camilla pitifully. He could have guessed what happened when Camilla and Irina were alone while they were all gone. Is that what the lamb thinks too? Amy asked Camilla curiously. How can a lowly lamb be compared to a noble vampire? Camilla said sternly. But a lamb eats grass too, Mag said with a smile. Camilla was stumped. She did not know what to say in reply, and could only turn her head away angrily with a huff. Something cropped up this afternoon, so we all went out, and didn't prepare the ingredients. I'll go up to change, and we can start business operations. Let's all get ready, Mag said as he walked upstairs quickly. What happened? Irina asked. A baddie kidnapped big sister Rena, so we all went to beat the baddie up and save her, Amy answered quickly. That's right, Your Highness, Ferris affirmed. Something like this happened, and no one called me. How could you? Irina sighed. Chaos City is too peaceful. There isn't even a single piece of big news around. It was quite urgent, so we didn't have the time to inform anyone. Mag came back down in his chef's uniform. He looked at Irina, and said, besides, the opponent was too weak. We've agreed that you wouldn't attack unless necessary. All right. Irina pouted, but very quickly and enthusiastically said, when are we going to settle the Twilight Forest's matter? Now that I think about it, we should be setting off the day after tomorrow, Mag said. That's great. Irina nodded. She walked towards the stairs, and said, I'll go up and take a rest. Sure, Your Highness. I'll send your dinner up later, Ferris said automatically. Irina paused in her steps, thought for a while, and turned back to say, steak, medium well. All right, Mag and Ferris said, almost at the same time. Irina's lips curled upwards, and she turned to go upstairs. When Irina disappeared upstairs, Camilla pulled Mag over, and said, I want steak as well. Raw. All right. I'll pan-fry the surface for you. Mag walked into the kitchen, and took out 2 slices of steak from the fridge. I can't believe Blaze actually did something like this behind my back. A golden-haired middle-aged elf looked at Roland in shock. After a while, he lowered his head, and said, "My lord, I was not strict with the inspection unit, and didn't notice the problem with my subordinates in time. I am wrong." Roland looked intently at Godala, and remained silent for a while before saying, "The problem with the inspection unit is very serious. As the supervisor and the deputy lord, you have to be partly responsible. The Grey Temple enforces the law. We represent the power and might of Chaos City. We carry with us the trust and faith of the citizens. If a pest like that appears in the Grey Temple, that will be a very huge blow to the Grey Temple's authority once word gets out. From today onwards, you will not need to supervise the inspection unit. The reserve division has no leader. You can lead them for the time being." "I will follow your arrangement," Godala answered. A chill flashed past his eyes, but his gaze remained the same. The Grey Temple was set up to ensure that we can better serve and protect the people of Chaos City, not to give us power over others. This is the first rule of the Grey Temple. Do you still remember it?" Roland asked Godala. Godala hesitated for a while before nodding in reply. "Yes." "Good." Roland turned to leave. Rena was traumatized, but she has already settled down. "We've sent her back to the hostel. Her mother is taking care of her, so we came back to the restaurant," Mia said. "That's good." Mag nodded. Today's events would be difficult for Rena to digest. It would be better to let her mother take care of her. Due to the lack of hot pot and many dishes, the restaurant's ability to receive customers was lowered dramatically. However, the customers surprisingly didn't complain too much. Instead, they began to try dishes that they had never tried before, and then they discovered all kinds of new delicacies. This batch of customers are very good." Mag nodded with satisfaction as he tossed the 6 woks around one by one. The fried rice and steaks were tossing around as helpings of delicacies were sent out one after another. "Child, tell me, what happened today?" Clarence softly asked as she sat on the bed and hugged Rena gently. "It's nothing. I just bumped into a small hooligan, but boss and my colleagues resolved the issue for me." Rena shook her head, and then rested her head on her mother's legs. She closed her eyes to sense the warm touch on her neck and on the back of her head. Clarence lowered her head with an uneasy expression to softly ask Rena, "Does it have something to do with that precious gift that day?" Rena didn't look right since she had returned home last night. Rena nodded. She opened her eyes and smiled at her mother. "He's just a useless hooligan, and was already arrested by the Grey Temple. Boss said he will never be released for the rest of his life. We will never have to worry about him again." "Good. It's good that he was arrested." Clarence also smiled with relief after hearing that. She had been worried for the whole day yesterday. She always felt the fellow who sent the gifts that night wasn't a good person. She was worried that Rena would get hurt. "Boss and my colleagues protected me. We will never have to worry again, because the restaurant is really very powerful." Rena nodded. She sat up, and solemnly said to Clarence, "I will also get stronger so I can protect Mother." Clarence smilingly patted her head, and consoled, "Silly child. As long as you can protect yourself, that will be fulfilling my greatest wish." "Oh, yes. Yesterday, the boss said he was officially making me the supervisor of the designated hot pot area. I will be in charge of everything in the Mamie restaurant's hot pot area. He even raised my monthly salary to 20,000 copper coins a month," Rena said with a smile. 20,000 copper points. Clarence's voice rose up a few notches, and she stared at Rena with disbelief. "So much money per month?" "Yes. Boss increased everybody's salary to 20,000 copper coins. He will continue to give us a pay raise every year." Rena nodded with conviction. She couldn't hide the joy on her face. She wasn't in the mood to contemplate the pay raise previously. After thinking about it carefully today, 20,000 copper coins was a huge sum to her. It was almost equal to a year of her previous salary. Isn't it too much? You have just started working there for less than 2 months, and boss is already letting us stay at such a nice place and providing us with food, Clarence said with concern. I also think it was a little too much. Rena nodded too before saying, however, boss said the restaurant's profits were very good, so he decided to increase our salaries. Boss Mag is really a very good person. Meeting him is your good fortune. Clarence sighed. Yes. Rena nodded gently. She blushed a little when she recalled how she threw herself into boss's warm arms and cried. Good person card +1. Mag listened to the reminder tone that appeared in his mind puzzledly. This wasn't as pleasant sounding as the reminder tone of the $3 that was checked into his Alipay. However, he had to admit that he was indeed a good person. Come. Give this super insanely spicy grilled fish to that orc gentleman who was seducing his lady over there. Mag gave a freshly done grilled fish with extra ingredients to Mia. I need to go out for a while, and might be home a little late. Irina appeared in the kitchen, and swiftly disappeared after finishing the steak. Before Mag could ask her, she had already disappeared. He couldn't help complaining, where is she going in the middle of the night? 480 kilometers to the west of Chaos City was a place called Thunderstorm Mountains. It was covered in a dense forest that was filled with magic beasts and animals. It was off the beaten track. What was the most amazing about this place was that thunder could be heard throughout the year there. Lightning was striking off branches every now and then. The lightning element was extremely irascible, so this place was named Thunderstorm Mountains. The Thunderstorm Mountains were covered in snow after winter arrived. The thunderstorms died down, and they had a short respite of silence. Meanwhile, in the deep part of the mountains, a gigantic crater that was over 500 meters in diameter and 10-odd meters deep suddenly appeared. All the trees around the crater seemed to be struck by lightning as they were all burnt, black, and dead. And right in the middle of the crater, there was a dark bottomless hole that was about 2 meters in diameter. It was so deep that even the moonlight seemed to be engulfed by it. At that moment, 2 figures were crouching around that crater and looking in. I see, old man, can you see what is it? I seem to have sensed the presence of the evil spirit. Krasud tossed a fireball into the crater, and it didn't touch the bottom even as it fell all the way until it disappeared. Urian, who was standing at the side, closed his eyes and pointed into the crater. Frost began to form at the opening, and then rapidly crept downward. About 3 minutes later, Urian suddenly opened his eyes, violently retrieved his finger, and then took 3 steps back at the same time. Did you scare yourself? Krasul looked at Urian doubtfully before looking down into the hole again. Boom! An explosion sounded in the deep crater, and a powerful black airflow gushed out of the deep crater together with countless icicles and shattered ice. Holy F***ck! Krasul also quickly took a big step back, and stared at that black airflow that gushed upward to the sky and then exploded into countless icicles. He angrily said, I see, old man, did you do that on purpose? It's the evil spirit's aura. That evil spirit that was subdued under these thunderstorm mountains seemed to have got itself out of a part of the seal. That's why it could release its aura to attract its subordinates and descendants, Urian replied in a hoarse voice. Krasus spat after hearing that. He angrily stared at the black airflow that lingered for a long time in the sky. These old fogies that won't die or disappear are really so irritating. Chapter 1517 The Great Old Ones really exist. It's better than doing nothing. Urian retrieved his hand and coughed twice loudly. Krasud pursed his lips, and a ball of flames circulated around his body. He rubbed his hands together, and said, regarding the legend of the evil god, we, too, only have that half a piece of parchment that we got from the cannibal tribe about 100 years ago. I didn't expect it to be real. This aura is indeed evil. The cannibal tribe only became bloodthirsty and violent after their whole tribe was bewitched by the evil god. They already lost their rationality, and lived by depending on their twisted instincts. That's why we annihilated their tribe. Urien waved his hand gently to smooth this huge 500-meter wide crater. The snow covered it, and apart from not having trees on top, it looked just like a normal area. Nobody knows what happened in the ancient times, and how many gods were sealed and hibernating in this world. However, with our power alone, we are definitely not their match, Urien said. The wrinkles on his face seemed to have gotten deeper. Hee. I don't think the same as you. Fighting the evil god seems exciting. Why don't we go down into this hole to have a look? Let's see what that evil god looks like, and if it is really that powerful. Krasu chuckled. Sure. Count me in. I also want to see what these so-called gods look like. A white figure suddenly appeared on the snow and smiled at Krasu. I will be responsible for digging it open. No, my lady. Please don't take it seriously. I am just joking around. Krasu quickly stopped Irina, but he soon recovered. Surprised, he asked, what are you doing here? Irina pursed her lips, and matter-of-factly said, I can also sense the thing that you guys could. My spiritual power is only a little below old Urien's. It's even more powerful than yours. Hee. That's true. Krasu scratched his head, actually feeling rather speechless. Is it really the evil god that is sealed underneath? Irina curiously asked. She wasn't in a hurry to remove the ice. She was familiar with the remnant of the aura in the air. She had encountered this mysterious aura twice, once on Borg and the evil aura that was entangling the Tree of Life, and the other time was the eerie black fog that Mag and she encountered when they went to the boundless sea realm. It was a dangerous aura that made people feel uncomfortable. Even its remnants could mess up a person's mind. It's an unexplainable existence, so we called it the evil god or the Great Old One. Krasu nodded and then smiled. Given these guys power, they definitely ruled over a wide territory in their days. I simply wondered why they were sealed up. Since there is an evil god, that means that the god of life and other gods possibly really existed too. In this case, could there have been a war of gods, then? The evil gods lost, and were all sealed? Irina asked curiously. That is a possibility. After all, besides gods, I could think of nobody else having the power to place them under a seal. Urien nodded, agreeing with Irina's deduction. After saying so much, why don't we go down and have a look for ourselves? I want to see what the evil god looks like. Is it really invincible? Irina began to get enthusiastic again. We can't even reach the bottom of this hole after going downward for more than 2,000 meters. Going down further, the evil aura will be so thick that it could penetrate the ice and affect my spiritual power. If we forcefully enter this hole, we will become the evil god's puppets even before we could reach the bottom, Urien calmly replied. There's something like that, Irina immediately halted. She had personally seen what Borg and Alfred looked like after they were bewitched by an evil god. They sold their souls, and were no longer normal beings. This is the parchment that we found under the cannibal tribe's shrine after we annihilated their tribe. There's a record about the evil god. Of course, according to their belief, that was a god who could bestow upon them a very powerful strength. But they didn't know that the god that they believed in had also given them greed and bloodthirst at the same time. Urien took out a piece of parchment, and tossed it to Irina. A bunch of red words crowded on the parchment. She read through it seriously, and apart from the spaces between words, she didn't understand a single thing. We have translated this parchment on and off for the past 100 years, said Krasu. What does it say? Irina asked curiously. What did the whole crazy cannibalistic tribe experience? It listed a whole series of evil gods, and recorded their achievements. There's one last sentence, Krasu's voice became lower. What is it? The great old ones will return one day to rule this world again. They fell into a complete silence. After a moment, Irina chuckled. They're a bunch of losers, and yet they still want to return to control the world again. Aren't they worried that they will get suppressed again? Many things had disappeared since ancient times. For example, the teleportation portals that could lead to anywhere, all the complex spell formations, and the power spell formation magic casters. No one knows what can matter if the evil god breaks through the seal. Urian continued to shake his head with a grave expression. He didn't relax a bit because of Irina's words. Since that's the case, we will still be fighting them sooner or later. Irina kept that parchment. A light green beam appeared beneath her feet as she said, "Lend me this parchment to play with for a few days. I will return it to you a couple of days later." Bring me. Before Kraso could finish speaking, Irina already disappeared together with a slowly dissipating teleportation portal. "I don't want to take the flying steed with this old fart." Kraso flicked a disdainful look at Urian. "You can fly back yourself." Urian waved to summon a big white eagle, and then leaped onto its back. "Why should I fly back when there is a free flying steed for me to take? I'm not flying." Kraso snorted, and then leaped onto the eagle's back too. "The great old ones, really exist?" Mag was staring at the parchment that Irina brought back with a surprised expression. He had almost read through everything about Thulhu mythos recently, and had absorbed many works of imagination from the authors on Earth. He also couldn't differentiate how many of them really knew the great old ones, and how many of them were reimagined after they were influenced by the mythological system that Lovecraft established. However, after being baptized by these classics, he had a basic understanding of the Thulhu mythos. The great old ones who possessed terrifying strength once ruled the world in the ancient times, but they were placed under a seal by the ancient gods, and went into a deep sleep. Numerous interesting works were born under this system, and many great old ones appeared. Mag had a lot of doubts about the great old one's existence on the Norland continent. His previous two encounters were also very brief. Be it the stone statue in the Black Fog, or the throne in the stone temple, he couldn't find correspondence between them and the great old ones that he recently read about. After the system translated the parchment that Irina got from Krasu, he knew it was a sorcerer's prayer that was praising the power and legend of an evil god named Meredith. It had also mentioned a few other evil gods, and showed their fanatical adoration. The last paragraph attracted his attention. "The great old ones will return one day to rule this world again." And did all the anomalies that suddenly appeared in this world mean that their return had already begun? What are the great old ones? Can they be eaten? What do they look like? Irina asked Mag curiously. "The great old ones in the legends are perhaps indescribable beings that have all kinds of tentacles," Mag answered after seriously pondering for a while. "Tentacles? That sounds rather gross. Can you cook it?" Irina furrowed her brows. "Teppan grill squid sounds quite good," Mag said after thinking for a while. "All right. Let's catch a great old one in the future to try it out. I just wonder if its meat will be too rough to chew after a few million years." Irina was already tempted to try. After all, this world was once theirs, we have to give them some respect, right? Mag didn't know to laugh or to cry. She said it as if they could defeat them easily. He wasn't even confident that he could cut the tentacles from the great old ones who were sealed up and make them into Teppan grill squid. "With regard to Blower, I still haven't received any news about him yet. But I am certain that he didn't end up in Helena's grasp." Mag changed the topic. Irina already knew that Blower was Shirley. She shook her head. "I, too, haven't received any news from him. Currently, I don't have many sources for information, but I will definitely go rescue him if he is captured by Helena. Maybe he was affected by the news of his father's death. I hope he will calm down." Mag sighed. He watched Blower's father fearlessly charge toward those people who surrounded Irina to buy them some time. "Sooner or later, I will make them pay for this," Irina said with a cold expression. Mag remained quiet. He naturally knew about Irina's character. I will continue to get people to help us find him as soon as possible, said Mag. You said you will be leaving for the Fok tribe 2 days later. Have you already got a plan? Irina asked, changing the topic. Mag nodded slightly. I don't have a detailed plan currently. The number one objective is to rescue Connie's brother. The second is to find a chance to disrupt the Kingslayer Gary's conferring ceremony, and neutralize the possibility of the alliance of the Fok tribe and the Og tribe. The Orcs will be standing on the Prower side once these two tribes form an alliance. No plan is usually the best plan. Isn't it just stirring up trouble so bad that there is no way to calm things down? I am very good at that, Irina smilingly said with brightening eyes. Mag secretly sighed for the Fok tribe as he looked at Irina, who had a bright glow in her eyes. People usually didn't end well if they got targeted by this lady. Little Amy and Anna are already asleep. Shouldn't we be doing something interesting on this quiet night? Irina asked as she leaned against the door. Her long and slender leg was revealed from her loose sleeping robe, and her smooth long silver hair was let down on her back. Mag coolly considered it for a while before taking out the tablet. Why don't we watch Tom and Jerry together? You can watch it yourself. Irina turned and walked into the bedroom angrily. She instantly slammed the door shut. Phew, what a close shave. Mag heaved a breath of relief, and then wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead. He seemed to have been targeted by some big shot at that instant. It was fortunate that he was quick-witted. Tom and Jerry is so interesting. Mag unlocked the tablet, and enjoyed 2 episodes before he switched off the lights and turned in. The night was getting very late, and the majority of the people in Chaos City were already sleeping. The suspicious people who were roaming around had greatly decreased after the Gentlemen's League went through with them. Even the homeless men went back to hide under the bridge. They no longer dared to come out to frighten the young ladies. Even the slums in the north of the city hadn't had any vicious events for a long time. All the known thugs were sent to Bastille prison by the gentlemen who had transformed into Sherlock Holmes as they gathered the evidence against them. Because of a shortage of prison cells, the population density of Bastille prison increased instantaneously. Apparently, it even triggered the dissatisfaction of some original occupants. Meanwhile, the Grey Temple and the City Lord's Castle's patrols increased their frequency, and really achieved the objective of letting the residents have a good night's rest. In the dark prison of the Grey Temple no light could reach, there was no difference between day and night. Terrifying screams reverberated throughout the empty and eerie corridor from the segregated cells. They formed echoes at the far end, and only disappeared after a long time. There was a dimly lit oil lamp at the end of the corridor. Borg was standing under the lamp as he snuffed some fine tobacco into his bamboo smoking pipe. He used a flint to light it up and then take a deep breath as he asked his subordinate, who hurried out of the cell with a piece of paper, "How is it?" "Chief, we have used all kinds of torture, but Blaze still insists that he did everything alone. He confessed about everyone under his supervision, and there was nobody above him." That subordinate handed the piece of paper to Borg. Borg took the paper and glanced through the contents quickly before smirking coldly. Is there really no one else above him, or he was still hoping for something? "Master, are you lost too?" Master Ram, who had never left Eason Castle, left the workshop that he had lived in for hundreds of years. This event itself was strange enough. Moreover, his destination was Chaos City, which was even more surprising. Master had never had any special experience there. Joey and Joss could roughly guess the reason. Ever since Mr. Mag visited them previously, Master Ram had been planning to move. "Fathead Fish has given me a clear idea. I have lived my whole life for forging, and I have forged highly sought-after weapons one after another. They have given me fame, but apart from endless orders and requests, I didn't receive any real benefits. While I am still clear-headed, I would like to go live at a new place. I only want to make one last weapon for the rest of my time. A weapon that is different from those I've created before." Master Ram sat on the bed and smiled. What about those requests that we have received previously? Joey softly asked. Turn all of them down. I already don't have time to make those things for them. Ram shook his head and smiled. They're not what I want to do. This is my last weapon, and they are not fit to receive it. It's going to the person who is meant for it. Yes. Joey nodded with sadness in his gaze. Joss was also standing at the side quietly as he had no idea what to say. Dwarves have to die one day. I've lived for over 400 years, and it's long enough. Ram smiled at the two of them. Speaking of it, I have never taught my disciples properly, and you two have suffered quite a bit with me. Try to learn as much as you can in the coming days. As for how much you can learn, it will have to depend on your abilities and perseverance. Yes. Joey and Joey swiftly acknowledged with glowing eyes. Connie was trailing after Rex in Basti prison. She looked at the fully packed prison, covering her nose, and trying to keep the stench at bay in vain. Master, we have too many baddies here. Why don't we just kill off some of them? After all, we will be simply wasting food and air to keep them alive. Rex broke the wrist of a prisoner who was trying to open the lock. He pushed the hand back, and then continued on his way as he said, killing a person is the most merciful punishment for the crimes he has done. Then, what's the point of keeping them alive here? Connie was perplexed. So they cannot have a quick and easy death, Rex calmly answered. Connie flicked a glance at that cell that was in the midst of fighting. A cell that was originally meant for two had 7 or 8 prisoners stuck in there. No matter what, they were not going to have a comfortable and easy stay. With an expectant gaze, Connie quickly caught up with Rex, and softly asked, Master, I will be going home the day after tomorrow. Do you want to come with me? No, Rex's answer was succinct as usual. Master, you may lose your disciple forever like this. Connie rolled her eyes. It's all right. I always think like that every time you go out. Goodbye then. Connie turned and left in a puff. 10 minutes later. Hey? Master, how did you appear in front of me? 20 minutes later. Hey? Master, what a coincidence. 30 minutes later. Hey? Master, are you lost too? Rex. In an opulent hall in the Marquis Manor, Bowen was pacing around with elation as he murmured to himself, Ha! That fellow has indeed sent himself in. Master, Bennett is one of us Marquises, after all. Will this incident affect us negatively, or even get us into trouble? The old butler asked worriedly. Bowen relaxedly smiled. He is the lowly bastard son of a prostitute. He wanted the whole world to know his identity, and he went around telling everyone that he was one of the Marquises because he wanted my position as the head of the family. However, I knew for a long time that his money came from illegal sources. I was worried he would get us in trouble one day, so I made sure our family's properties and people drew a clear line with him. It will have nothing to do with us, the Marquis family, even when he committed heinous crimes. Master indeed has foresight. The old butler quickly buttered him up. After pondering, he continued, Master, although Bennett's brothels and gambling dens were sealed, he has whitewashed many of his properties in the past few years. For example, that tea house and those jewelry shops and pharmacies. They are valuable properties and businesses. The gambling dens and brothels are definitely gone after he went in, but regarding these shops and properties, we could, since he is already in there because of such a big crime, he most likely is never going to get out. These properties naturally are going to belong to the Marquis family. The smile on Bowen's face became brighter and brighter. He stopped pacing, and then told the old butler, You will go and assemble the accountant and his assistants now. We will take over those properties and shops early tomorrow morning. Yes, the old butler answered, and then left. Heaven is really helping me. Not only did it get rid of Bennett this scourge, it even gave me such a big gift. Although that mag from Mamie restaurant isn't a good man, I really have to thank him for this incident." Bowen laughed out loud. The Marquis family's potential would get a great boost after absorbing Bennett's properties, and the gap between them and the Moritons and Buffetts would be narrowed. "Those gambling dens and brothels are a pity. They're the real cash cows," Bowen lamented. He knew very well how Bennett got rich. The city lord's castle. The lights in the secret chamber were still lit. "I'm not getting involved in the Grey Temple's internal affairs, but we have to properly handle the Mamie restaurant's incident." Although the two of them seemed to be more even-tempered, and began to leave people alive recently, they are heading to the Twilight Forest very soon. That is the event that concerns the situation on the entire Norland continent. "We've to make sure we've got their backs," Michael said to Roland with a grave expression. "I will investigate the inspection troop. Although there is no evidence that Godala is involved, I'll transfer him to an unimportant post in a backup unit. The investigation works on all the departments will be carried out swiftly too." Roland was drawing circles with his finger on the table. He said with self-reproach, "We've spent too much effort and energy on external affairs as we thought the system will make everything run perfectly, but we cannot see through a person's heart." He'd never thought he would end up in this pathetic state. He only wanted to get a hot pot recipe from a small restaurant's employee. But he had lost his gambling dens and brothels because of that, and even got himself imprisoned. The Grey Temple knew everything, those fellows who were buried in the backyard and the forbidden magical drugs that were sold in the past years. All the previous deeds were dug up, and the testimonies were all written down in black and white, which he had to confess to. Those subordinates who always acted loyal and trustworthy all loosened their lips at the hands of the Grey Temple. He most likely was never going to get out of here. His reputation was already tarnished, and that big brother of his had to be deliberating how to strike off his name from the Marquis family's genealogical record. Bennett was a little dazed, and he couldn't help thinking about Mag. All these things were obviously caused by him. His employees and his connection with the Grey Temple all gave him a shock. He was even a little regretful. If only he hadn't been so greedy to have designs on Mamie restaurant and its prosperous hot pot business, or had stopped his actions when Mag came to look for him that day, all these wouldn't have happened. "Bastard!" Bennett's hoarse roar reverberated in the cell, and all it got was a stern warning. Mag had a good sleep. He turned off the alarm clock, and went downstairs to make breakfast. There was a knock on the door soon. Mag opened the door, and besides Ferris and Camilla who came to prepare the ingredients early, Rena was also standing at the door. Mag stepped aside to let them in. After greeting Ferris and Camilla, feeling rather surprised, he asked Rena, "Rena, why are you here so early too?" "I have something to discuss with you, so I come early," Rena smilingly said. She looked rather good. "Sure, take a seat over there first," Mag said. "All right." Rena nodded, and went to sit down near the door. Mag went into the kitchen to get a glass of warm water. He placed it in front of Rena and smiled. "Did you sleep well last night?" "I slept with my mother, and I slept very well." Rena nodded. The Badas were all arrested, and she did indeed have a good sleep in her mother's arms. "What do you have to tell me early in the morning?" Mag asked. I have an immature idea," Rena looked at Mag with hesitation. Mag encouraged, "Just tell me whatever idea you have. I'm willing to listen." Rena looked at Mag's warm smile, and gathered up her courage. "I am thinking, maybe we could set up a new hot pot restaurant away from Mamie restaurant." "Set up a new hot pot restaurant?" Mag was staring at Rena, feeling a little shocked. After pondering, he said, "Judging from the restaurant's current situation, I'm afraid it can't be done easily." "Why do you want to open another hot pot restaurant?" "I think that hot pot is a very great invention. It has a special cooking and eating method and a unique ambience. At the same time, it's very delicious. However, it is a little expensive for normal people to come to our restaurant to eat hot pot now. The per capita consumption is over 1,000, which is unaffordable for most people. I know you always use the best spices and ingredients to create extreme scrumptiousness. I hope to open an affordable hot pot restaurant by lowering the ingredients standard so more ordinary people can taste the authentic hot pot, Rena asked Mag with a sincere expression. Mag pondered briefly before nodding at Rena, who looked nervous and expectant. This is quite a good idea. Do you have a concrete plan? Did you agree? Rena was obviously taken aback. I agree with your idea, but I still need to listen to your plan on how to implement it. Mag wasn't in a hurry to agree. I am very familiar with the market in the north of the city. Every morning at 3 a.m., we can get very good and fresh pork bones from the vendor at a very cheap price to make the bone broth. We can also get fresh tripes and other ingredients at the market too. Through selecting the suppliers, we could obtain good quality ingredients that are fairly priced. As for the spices, I can find replacements for the majority of them. There may be a slight difference in the taste and texture, but the taste will still be above the passing grade. Just that I will have to get a few of the spices from you. Spending about 100 copper coins per person will be enough for the normal customers to fill their stomachs. After my calculations, after deducting the cost of the ingredients and manpower, we still have more than half of the profit margin. If we have a high volume of customers every day, we should be able to obtain a very good profit, Rena explained clearly. This is indeed a very good idea and is very operable. Mag looked at Rena, impressed. He'd indeed made the right choice then. If Bennett had managed to poach her, she would have definitely been an excellent manager and partner. The hot pot was the general population's favorite. Mag had never intended to price it out of reach. Expensive and out of reach wasn't compatible with the hot pot at all. However, Mamie restaurant was already busy enough, and there was plenty of other stuff. He simply didn't have the luxury of time to consider the normal people's feelings. Just as Rena said, the ingredients that he bought from the system were naturally expensive because they were of excellent quality. Doing as Rena suggested, they could find local suppliers, and then use normal ingredients for the hot pot to greatly lower the cost, making it affordable for the common people. This is just a bit of my immature thinking. Rena blushed. She thought her suggestion would be seriously rejected by Mag. She didn't expect to get his approval. Mag smiled at Rena. This idea is quite good. The idea of opening a hot pot restaurant and taking the middle to lower end market is also very commercialized. Furthermore, that market is big enough. However, I don't have the time to manage that currently, and you are already in charge of the designated hot pot area now, so do you still have the energy to open another new hot pot restaurant? Our restaurant only supplies the hot pot in the evening, so I'm quite free in the morning. But, Rena looked at Mag as she hemmed and hawed. For the new hot pot restaurant, I will give you 2 million copper coins as the startup fund. You will be the manager, and will be responsible for every aspect of this restaurant from the ground up. We will no longer be superior and subordinate, but partners. I will not get involved in any matters or decisions of this hot pot restaurant. You will have half of the equity of this hot pot restaurant, and I will only be in charge of supplying you with the funds and receiving the dividends in the future. Mag smiled at Rena. Are you confident enough to do it? Do it. But, Rena was still hesitating. I hope your hot pot restaurant will not be confined to Chaos City. Why not let everyone in the world fall in love with eating hot pot? Asked Mag. Let everyone in the world fall in love with eating hot pot. Rena's eyes slowly lit up as she felt the world in her mind suddenly expanded. The world beyond Chaos City was once very far for her, as she had to work hard for her survival, but now her boss was putting the whole world in front of her. Let the hot pot get out of Mamie restaurant, get out of Chaos City, and make everyone in the world fall in love with eating hot pot. Rena felt her heart begin to race just thinking about it. We can plan this slowly. There's no need to rush. I will go prepare breakfast for everyone first. Mag got up to walk to the kitchen. He knew that Rena could grow into a very good manager. Of course, his expectation for her was to become the queen of the hot pot. As for him, he would be the man behind the queen of the hot pot. Just thinking about it, Mag felt it was a very cost-effective angel investment. This was a completely empty area, and the extreme popularity of Mamie Restaurant's hot pot area had already proven this market's extensity. Rena sat on her seat, and considered Mag's words seriously. Although she felt that the terms that the boss had given were too wonderful, she didn't want to miss this opportunity to change her life. Opening a hot pot restaurant with boss and being forced to join Bennett brought two completely different feelings. She didn't have to bear the name of a traitor, or go against her principles. Furthermore, they even had the exact same goals and purposes. As a person who had dreamed of becoming a chef and offering her customers delicacies since she was young, Rena was indeed very tempted by Mag's suggestion. Constrained by its ingredients, the restaurant's extremely exquisite hot pot was destined to be unable to achieve a large-scale promotion. How to create a down-to-earth hot pot was to be what she and the new hot pot restaurant got to do. But if I don't do it, then nobody is going to do it. Rena turned to look at Mag, who was busy in the kitchen. Boss was a chef who sought perfection. Apart from the restaurant's daily operation, a lot of his effort was spent on developing new products. Boss was the most talented chef that she had ever met. The speed of his releasing the new products was astonishing. His new and creative methods of cooking always gave a shock to the industry. If a person like him wasted his energy on hot pot, that would definitely be a loss to the culinary world. As for her, she liked hot pot, and also knew that her capability was limited, so she could only focus on the hot pot. Making it affordable and retaining most of its taste was already not an easy feat. Her gaze gradually became resolute as she thought of that. After the breakfast was over, Mag had nothing else to do, so he continued to teach Harris and Chapman how to make husband and wife lung slice. Chapman's husband and wife lung slice had already reached 80 to 90% of Mag's standard. His control of the details was also getting more and more mature. Meanwhile, Harris forcefully closed the gap between him and Chapman that was created by Mag's tapping with his rich experience and culinary skills that far exceeded normal chefs. "When do you intend to leave Chaos City?" Mag asked curiously after tasting their husband and wife lung slice. "Chaos City is an interesting place. We don't mind staying here for a while longer." Harris smiled at Mag as he buttered him up. "If Master doesn't mind, you can also teach us a few more dishes." "I have very great respect for that." Buddha jumps over the wall. Mag couldn't help laughing at Harris after looking at his luscious black hair. "Your hair has almost all grown out, so why are you still looking at it?" Buddha jumps over the wall. "Isn't this once bitten twice shy? It's one thing that it has grown out, but it's another matter to prevent it from falling out again." Harris chuckled. Mag rolled his eyes. It wasn't that he was unwilling to teach, but this dish was so complicated and demanding on its ingredients that it was destined that nobody else could replicate this. Buddha jumps over the wall exactly once it left Mag's kitchen. As for the hair growing effect, Mag guessed it was most probably due to one or a few of its ingredients' characteristics. This effect might disappear if they changed to ingredients that came from another location. However, he, too, had gained a great deal after spending these few days with Harris, especially on the cutting skills. He learned many practical techniques from him. Harris's understanding of the ingredients' characteristics had also amazed him. "Mother, boss is letting me." Rena returned to the dormitory and repeated Mag's suggestion to her mother. Clarence shook her head after pondering. "Boss Mag is a nice person. He just saved you yesterday, and he's going to help you set up a restaurant now. He is providing the techniques and the skills, and you're taking half of the shares simply by doing some stuff. We will be ashamed to accept that." Rena nodded. After a moment of hesitation, she continued, "But, if I don't do it, then nobody is going to promote the hot pot. Boss has more important things to do, and the others are busy too. I really want to let more people try the hot pot. People in Chaos City, and even beyond Chaos City, could try the affordable hot pot. Clarence looked at the spark in Rena's eyes, which resembled a tiny sun, and smilingly nodded. Then, you will go and do it. Boss Mag supports you, and I support you too. Boss, I'm done thinking. I am willing to go and open a new hot pot restaurant. Rena stayed back to talk to Mag after the lunch service. Mag was removing his apron as she gravely said, but I only want 10% of the hot pot restaurant's equity. Even though she didn't know if the new hot pot restaurant could bring in profit and expand, she completely agreed with Mag's suggestion. The women and children were the vulnerable ones. Their survival was even harder in the slums. It would be very meaningful for her to do something for them. Mag went to the counter, and took out a stack of banknotes from the cash box. He put them into a small money bag, and gave it to Rena. These banknotes are worth 2 million copper coins. Take them first and tell me if they are not sufficient. Rena stared at that money bag, and hesitantly said, I will take the money from you in installments. I will also report to you about the spendings at all times. Mag shook his head. No. You don't have to report to me about anything as long as you invite me over for a meal after the restaurant is up and running. This restaurant's management rights belong to you completely, including how to use this initial investment of 2 million copper coins. But, Rena hesitated as she met Mag's trusting eyes. She eventually accepted the money bag and solemnly nodded. I will use every single coin properly. Just go ahead. There's no need to worry about the budget. I can add on to it if it isn't enough. I'll also help you if you encounter problems in selecting the restaurant's location. As for the other matters, you will have to do them yourself. Mag smiled. He didn't know if Rena wanted to open a big restaurant. If it was meant for 1,000 diners, then it would cost more than 2 million to buy the shop alone. Of course, given Chaos City's population of 1 million people, and being the one and only affordable hot pot restaurant, they wouldn't have to worry about filling up those 1,000 seats. If Rena could control the taste well, she could even attract some of the high spenders from Mamie Restaurant. About the shop, Rena frowned as she pondered. It would naturally be the best if the restaurant could be open in Aiden Square as the location was convenient, and there were plenty of restaurants. However, the rent of commercial properties in Aiden Square was extremely high. She wanted to open a huge hot pot restaurant that could accommodate more than 1,000 people so that the customers wouldn't have to line up, and eating hot pot would be an easy and relaxed affair. Mag also began to seriously consider. Mabai, his neighbor, had reserved a few shops for him. They were rather big, and could accommodate a hot pot restaurant. However, it would be rather weird to have the new hot pot restaurant next to Mamie Restaurant. Ding! Right then, the bell at the door rang. Who is it? Mag walked to the door puzzledly. He opened the door, and saw a man wearing a black hat and black trench coat standing out there. Although the man wore his hat low over his face, Mag could recognize who he was. Borg looked up at Mag, and said in a low voice, Boss Mag, I would like to explain to you yesterday's matter and resolve the issues. Come on in. Rena's here too. Mag stepped aside to let him in. Boss, I will leave first since you have matters to discuss. Rena prepared to leave after she saw Borg, who was dressed rather mysteriously. Borg removed his hat, and said to Rena, Miss Rena, right? I'm from the Grey Temple. Today, I am here to apologize to you and Mr. Mag on behalf of Grey Temple, and to discuss the matter of compensation. Rena was taken aback. She recognized the man as the official from Grey Temple who'd brought his men to arrest the bad guys last night, and swiftly nodded. And nice to meet you. Mag closed the door and shook his head. I don't need compensation, but the Grey Temple should really apologize to Rena, and compensate her for the shock and harm that she had suffered. Such an incident shouldn't have happened. Miss Rena, on behalf of the Grey Temple, I solemnly apologize to you for what happened yesterday, Borg sincerely said, and gave Rena a 90-degree bow. It's fine, Rena waved her hands in panic, and looked at Mag for help. Mag was also staring at Borg with surprise. He knew very well that Borg was the department head of the Grey Temple's intelligence department, and could be considered a big shot in Chaos City too. He was actually willing to humble himself and apologize to Rena. Borg straightened up, and continued to Rena, "Yesterday's events happened due to our negligence, and we have also failed in our duty to discover and eradicate the deprivation and corruption of the Grey Temple's personnel. Being the law enforcement agency of Chaos City, the Grey Temple had failed to perform our duty to protect the residents, so we had to reflect on ourselves and apologize." Feeling slightly overwhelmed, Rena quickly nodded, and said, Thank you for coming to rescue us that day and heal me. What about the compensation?" Mag asked smilingly. He was rather curious what compensation Borg would offer after coming here to apologize personally. "No need. There's no need for compensation. That lady has already cured me completely yesterday." Rena swiftly shook her head. "Regarding our mistake yesterday, the Grey Temple decided to compensate you with a commercial property under the perpetrator's name. This is the full set of documents, including the property and the land's title deeds. After the verification of the Grey Temple and the City Lord's castle, from now onward, that shop belongs to you." Borg took out a thick craft paper envelope from his trench coat, and gave it to Rena with both his hands. "This," Rena panicked and looked at Mag. "Take it. This is the price that bastard should rightly pay for what he did to you. The Grey Temple is simply passing it on to you," Mag said with a smile. He was rather curious which commercial property the Grey Temple gave to Rena. However, as long as it was situated in Aiden Square, it would be worth hundreds of thousands of copper coins. It was quite a big sum to Rena. Rena accepted that envelope, and then said to Borg, "Thank you. You deserved it." Borg was also smiling. Then, he bade his farewell and left. Borg pressed his hat down, and said to Mag in a soft voice, "That was the apology gift that the Lord of the Grey Temple meant to give you." "You know I do not need a commercial property like that," Mag replied with a smile. "Perhaps you might regret it." Borg smiled and strode away. "Regret?" Mag raised his eyebrows. He turned around, and immediately saw Rena staring at the title deeds in her hands with shock on her face. Rena looked up at Mag, and said in a quivering voice, "Boss, this is a 3,000 square meters commercial property." Chapter 1523 If Urquatu is available too. Mamie Restaurant, including the designated hot pot area, was only about 500 square meters, while this property that the Grey Temple used as the apology gift was actually 3,000 square meters big. Furthermore, it's situated right in Aiden Square, about 300 meters to the left of our restaurant, Rena continued. Mag did a rough calculation. This apology gift was worth more than 30 million. Mag couldn't help chuckle. The Grey Temple is really very generous. Apart from being astonished, he didn't have any jealousy and regrets. This is too valuable," Rena finally regained her wits. The stack of title deeds in her hands felt like a hot potato. She couldn't wait to toss it away. "No. You deserved that." Mag smiled at Rena. "Furthermore, with this commercial property, you don't have to look for a place to set up the hot pot restaurant anymore. If I remember correctly, a rather big restaurant has been undergoing renovation over there for a long time. It could be the hot pot restaurant that Bennett wanted you to be the manager of." But, Rena was still feeling a little uncomfortable. "Even if you decline and return it to the Grey Temple, it will end up in someone else's hands in a minute, so why don't you just accept it and just set up the new hot pot restaurant," Mag said to Rena solemnly. "Maybe you're not sure about the value of this property. Due to Mamie Restaurant, the commercial property's prices in the northwestern corner of Aiden Square have been shooting up. The price per square meter is already above 10,000 copper coins, which means that property's value is above 30 million copper coins. Even if you don't want to operate a restaurant in the future, your mother and you could have a carefree life with the annual rental alone. 30,000,000. Rena's eyes widened as she couldn't imagine what a huge number that was. Furthermore, such a valuable commercial property was now hers? Mag smilingly continued, of course, if you could open hot pot restaurants all over the Norland continent, the 30 million store would just be the beginning. The world beyond Chaos City is very huge. Rena looked at Mag as she solemnly kept the title deeds in her hands and nodded. I will put it to good use. Let's go. Since we have nothing to do now, let's go and check out your new property. Mag put on his jacket and walked to the door. Rena hugged the title deeds and the craft paper envelope tightly in her arms, and quickly caught up with Mag. The shop that Rena received was indeed very big. It had 2 stories. Apart from putting up the signboard, the renovation was basically completed. Marbles were inlaid on the walls, giving out an opulent glow. However, it was in complete silence, and the workers seemed to have evacuated overnight. The door was ajar and unlocked. Let's go in to take a look. Mag straightaway pushed open the door and went in. The spacious hall was set up with many custom-made hot pot tables which were based on the Mamie restaurant's hot pot tables. This made Mag suspect that this world also had measuring tapes. The restaurant's interior renovation was basically completed, and only some building materials were left behind. The resplendent decor style suited Bennett's style to a T. It should have been designed by the same designer as his tea house. It stunk of the nouveau riche. There were 2 rows of private rooms at the 2 sides apart from the spacious hall, and were even more opulently decorated. If they counted by the numbers of seats alone, just the first floor alone could accommodate about 1,000 people at the same time. Is the kitchen on the second floor? Mag walked 1 round on the first floor, and he couldn't find the kitchen. Hence, he went up to the second floor. There weren't any private rooms on the second floor. It only had a 500 square meter big great hall which was also filled with custom-made hot pot tables. Passing through the great hall, he came to a super huge kitchen that was about 1,000 square meters big. The renovation was already completed. They only needed to install the kitchenware. Mag walked 1 round, and then smiled at Rena whose mouth was agape the entire time till now. It is a giant hot pot restaurant that is ready to open any time. This saved you quite a lot of trouble. It's huge. Can I really open such a huge hot pot restaurant? Rena shrugged, but her gaze began to fill with anticipation. I think there will be no problem at all. Mag smiled. If this restaurant could run smoothly, even if they only charged 100 copper coins per customer, the daily sales could match up with Mamie restaurants. Rena stayed back in the restaurant to take note of the items that they needed to add or take away, while Mag returned to the restaurant first. He decided to wash his hands completely from the new hot pot restaurant and be a good investor. Bennett was never going to get out for the rest of his life. It could be considered that Mag had removed 1 menace from Chaos City. As for how the Grey Temple handled their internal affairs, that wasn't his business. He believed Roland wouldn't let the maggots survive in the Grey Temple. What he needed to prepare now was the trip to the Twilight Forest tomorrow, and how he could complete the mission, and ensure everyone from the restaurant could get out of there safely. The Fok tribe was still the 2nd largest Orc tribe. Even though their power had greatly diminished after going through an internal strife, they still had dozens of 10th-tier powerhouses and a group of 8th-tier and 9th-tier powerhouses. Mag received the latest intel about the Fok tribe and the Orcs from the Grey Temple soon after he reached the restaurant. He also got a name and a rendezvous location. If you encounter an emergency at the Fok tribe, you could go to the Stone Alley to look for Old Sim, the boss of Sim Tavern. He will provide you with assistance. Mag stared at that piece of paper for a while, and then he rubbed the paper between his fingers, and reduced it to dust. Ding! Old Sim, the boss of Sim Tavern in the Stone Alley, is the top master brewer of rum. The host has triggered a hidden mission. Please ask Old Sim to take you as an apprentice, and learn how to brew rum. Mission reward: master the brewing techniques. You will receive 3 new alcoholic beverages brewing techniques. Punishment for failing the mission, becoming allergic to alcohol. Mission time limit, complete it within 3 days. Just then, the system's voice rang in Mag's head. Learn to brew rum. Mag was taken by surprise. This mission was rather interesting. After pondering, he asked, System, am I able to choose the brewing methods of any alcohol beverages? Including Mautai and Urquatu? Yes. You could choose any 3 from all the alcoholic beverages. Mag cocked an eyebrow, and murmured to himself with a smile, if Urquatu is available too, then I have a new idea. Next morning, Mag hung a notice on the door. Out to obtain ingredients. The restaurant will be closed for a few days. Then, he brought everyone along from the restaurant, met up with the orcs who were sent to bring them to the Fok tribe, and left on the flying steeds. Chapter 1524 Who the heck do you think you are? Yes. Borg nodded and then left. The demons in the boundless sea realm are still in a mess and disarray. I wonder what kind of mess this pair of husband and wife could create on their current trip to the Twilight Forest. They really make me rather expectant, Borg murmured to himself as he walked to the window. Holy F***ck. Without any warning, Boss Mag is out to look for ingredients again. I specially traipsed over half of the city to have a helping of soybean milk and yushao here, and it's closed. At Mamie Restaurant's entrance, the customers were all whining when they saw the notice. Ha! Such an irresponsible boss. Even after he comes back and releases a new item, I will never, if it's very delish. I will also never, just have a small portion. Everyone consoled one another before they went on their own ways. What else could they do? The scrumptious new products deserved to be patiently waited for. This had become a kind of common consensus. Amy lay in Mag's arms, and curiously asked, Father, do we really not have to apply for leave from masters? Will they be angry? However, she didn't look worried at all. It's all right. I already asked the delivery courier to send the written request for leave to the school. Master Krasua should have received it by now, Mag smilingly replied. As they had applied for too many leaves of absence, he was too embarrassed to see Krasua personally, so he asked Connie to send a written request for leave over before they left. It could be deemed as making good use of resources. Then, what if she gets lost? Amy worriedly asked. Chaos School is such an easy place to find. She shouldn't get lost, right? Mag cocked an eyebrow. But the Basti prison is just next door, and she can still lose her way, Amy continued. Mag was actually lost for words. Didn't that master say that to go to Chaos School, I have to go straight, turn left, and then turn right? In that case, wouldn't I be back to the same place again? Connie seriously pondered as she stood at an alley. That was already the 15th pedestrian that she had asked. Unfortunately, it seemed like she was getting further and further away from Chaos School. However, she had obviously followed those pedestrians' instructions, so why was she getting further and further away? Those fellows must have given me the wrong directions, and I've trusted them. Connie stomped her feet in annoyance. She simply went into the alley on the right without thinking. She had initially intended to go to the West Gate as planned to leave Chaos City on a flying steed after she delivered the request, but now the problem was that not only did she fail to find Chaos School, she also didn't know how to go to the west of the city. Sigh. Why did I accept a disciple who can't even locate the north, and even try to groom her into being an assassin? Standing on top of a wall, Rex sighed deeply before looking toward the sky. The black giant eagle's wingspan was over 50 meters. Rows of seats were secured on the eagle's back, which allowed the passengers to enjoy their journey in comfort. The windshields that were installed kept off the cold wind, and made the winter travel feel less chilly. Everyone from Mamie Restaurant, apart from Rena, was invited to the Twilight Forest. Of course, Camilla chose to make her own way there because of her status and ego. She would get in touch with them secretly after they reached the Fok tribe. Ferris had to stay back to train more elven chefs for the night elves, so she didn't make the trip, either. Hence, the spot that she left vacant was filled by Irina, who had disguised herself. Mia, Elizabeth, Babla, Gina, and Anna, together with Mag, Amy, and Irina. The 8 of them, plus one fat cat, were prepared to go to the Twilight Forest to create a big mess. Apart from the Beastmaster on the eagle's back, that envoy from the Fok tribe, Clor, was present. The Black Eagle took off, and soon left Chaos City behind very quickly. Clor, who was sitting in the first row, stood up with a lecherous expression. His slightly cocked eyes were roving all over the ladies as he began to grin lecherously. "Hey, mister! Your saliva is going to drip," Amy reminded him with kind intentions. Clor glared at Amy, and coldly said, "Hey, imp, you've got to call me Lord Clor." Then, he haughtily told everybody, "Let me tell you all this. Chaos City's rules don't work once we're out of it, and the Fok tribe has Fok tribe's rules. From now on, you all have to serve me. You will only have a chance to return home if you please me, otherwise," Clor sneered. He didn't finish his words, but the hidden meaning was very clear. Mag looked at Clor piteously. Who gave him the courage to say such big words? One had to know that everyone sitting on the eagle's back, including Amy, could toss him down 100 times. Everyone was also staring at Clor with befuddlement on their faces. These fellows are not following the plot? The weird silence and all their unexplainable gazes made the expression of Clor, who was preparing to take in their fearful expressions, slowly freeze. He couldn't help but angrily say, "Let me tell you. I am the real master on this eagle's back now. All you fellows are going to stand up for me right now." Meow. Ugly Duckling suddenly jumped out from Amy's arms, and launched a back kick to Clor's face. Clor wasn't on guard, and was sent reeling back a few steps by Ugly Duckling's kick. He fell onto his seat with a bloody scratch on his face. Ugly Duckling flicked a backward glance at Clor disdainfully before it sashayed back to Amy gracefully. It purred at her as if it was asking for praises, and then rubbed its head against her calf. This funny scene made everyone burst out in laughter. Amy smilingly said to Clor, "Mister, even Ugly Duckling doesn't accept what you are talking about. Why, you damned fellow! I'm going to kill you." Clor stared at Ugly Duckling furiously as a dagger appeared in his hand. "Lord Clor, that is a holy beast. You cannot hurt it." The Beastmaster at the side quickly stopped Clor while looking at Ugly Duckling reverently. Clor stared at Ugly Duckling with a rapidly changing expression, and he eventually kept the dagger angrily. His gaze turned onto Mag, and he coldly ordered, "I order you to make them serve me. We're invited to the Twilight Forest to prepare for the banquet for the conferring ceremony of the new chief of the Fok tribe. There isn't any content about us serving anyone." Mag smiled at Clor. "Who the heck do you think you are?" Chapter 1525. Little Amy has protected the world's peace once again. What made him even angrier was the beauty's unfazed expressions. They simply had no reaction to his warning and order. "Mister, don't be nervous. Just say whatever you want to say quickly before you go down," Amy smilingly said. "We will not be responsible for passing on your last words." Irina flicked a glance at Clor, and then calmly said, "Therefore, don't bother to say too much. Anyway, it will be a waste." Clor choked on his words, but he soon smirked coldly. He removed a long whip from his waist, and cracked his neck as he told all of them, "Seems like you all won't know who is in charge here if I don't make you suffer." Mia and the rest all looked toward Mag. They would be going to the Fok tribe to save Connie's brother. Whether they should tolerate this chap's humiliation depended on Mag's plan. Amy looked up, and asked Mag, "Father, do we still need to keep this bata here? His use here is not even bigger than this stupid eagle's underneath us." Mag shook his head with a smile. "So, he's useless then?" Amy pondered, and her gaze turned toward Clore as she revealed a brilliant smile. "Mister, in what posture would you like to crash land? I think I will teach you a lesson first, sharp-tongued imp." Clore raised his whip in preparation to strike at Amy. "Since this is the case, I will have to choose a fancy spiral face landing for you then," Amy said seriously. She tapped gently on the eagle's back with her toes, and the eagle, which had been flying smoothly, suddenly dipped a little. Amy's tiny figure shot out. She did a half-turn in midair, and her right foot kicked Clore's face almost with the exact method and angle as Ugly Duckling. Clore glared with wide eyes, and a fearful expression appeared on that ugly face before swiftly changing shape under that dainty foot. He had just lifted the whip up. Whoosh! Clore almost instantly disappeared from the eagle's back, and fell with his head down first like a spinning top. The giant eagle was about 300 meters in the air, and about 10 odd seconds later, a dull thud could be heard from down below together with the echoes of rocks rolling off. The Beastmaster controlling the giant eagle exclaimed, "Lord Clore! Phew! I wonder if Uncle Batty is still all right." Amy landed back on the eagle's back gently, and poked her head out to look down below. Irina flicked a glance downward, and then calmly said, "The life aura is slowly diminishing. He's not going to be alive for much longer. Little Amy has protected the world's peace once again." Mag also gave her a thumbs up calmly. He didn't want to butter up that fellow during the journey, and there was no way he would let Irina and the rest serve him. As Clore was one of Gary's not very trusted cronies and a participant in the rebellion, getting rid of him before they arrived at the Fok tribe wasn't going to affect the plan from moving onward. They simply needed to find an excuse to explain this after they arrived. That Beastmaster was staring at Mag and the gang with shock and fear as he said in a trembling voice, "Why you all killed Lord Clore? He fell off himself. You should have seen it with your own eyes." Mag stood up and smiled at that Beastmaster. "Wasn't that so?" The Beastmaster shivered, and cold sweat beaded on his forehead immediately. As if he was looking at the devil, he nodded at Mag, "Why yes. I saw it. It's Lord Clore, he jumped down himself." Mag continued to smile as he nodded. "Now, we're going to continue on our journey to the Fok tribe. Are you able to bring us there?" "Yes. I will definitely bring all of you lord and ladies to the Fok tribe before the sun sets." The Beastmaster swiftly nodded. "Very well. Let's continue on our journey." Mag nodded. "Yes." The Beastmaster quickly turned around, and continued to navigate and accelerate the giant eagle forward. He didn't dare to turn his head around. Irina threw a glance at Mag. Mag shook his head slightly, hinting at her to stay still and not act rashly. Without Clore around, the Beastmaster just became their sole means of travel. The atmosphere on the eagle slowly became relaxed. It almost transformed into another one of Mamie Restaurant's group outings. Mag even took out his kitchenware, and began to cook in the open air. The Twilight Forest. In a resplendent tall, great stone hall, a strapping orc with an obvious scar on his right eyebrow was sitting on the throne. With a dark expression, he said to the orcs standing below, "You all still failed to catch that girl Connie." A stocky orc said, "Chief, we have searched through the Twilight Forest, and also sent many people to search in Chaos City, but we still couldn't find a trace of her. According to our estimation, she most likely has died during her escape. After all, she is famous for losing her way. There's simply no way for her to reach Chaos City safely." Another tall and lanky orc continued, "Yes, Chief. She doesn't know magic, nor is she good at cultivation. Even if she is alive, there's no way she could affect the invincible you and your status and disrupt the conferring ceremony. If she dares to appear at the conferring ceremony, we can even execute her together with her big brother, and completely dash the hopes of those fellows." Gary, who was sitting on the throne, remained silent for a moment before curling a corner of his mouth and revealing a sinister smile. "Then we will get the news out there. I really want to see if she will bite the hook for her beloved brother and the few of her remaining relatives." "Yes, the three orcs acknowledged, and felt relieved at the same time. Gary then continued to ask, "How is the preparation for the conferring ceremony? All the orc tribes will send envoys to participate in my conferring ceremony, so we have to make sure nothing goes wrong. Don't disgrace me. The venue of the conferring ceremony is already all set up according to the conferring ceremony of Chief Oster of the Og tribe. I have let Clore go and invite Chef Mag from Mamie Restaurant in Chaos City to take charge of the banquet on that day. They should already be on their way here now," the stocky orc quickly replied. "A chef from Chaos City?" Gary furrowed his eyebrows. "Yes. That chef has received the title of the best chef at the King of the Roth Empire's court banquet. He is one of the world's top chefs now. It certainly looks good for us having him in charge of the banquet." The stocky orc smiled happily. He had spent a lot of effort trying to collect this information. It was not easy to find a good chef like him. "You all will be duly rewarded after you do a proper job." Gary's gaze swept across the orcs who were already smiling excitedly, and then coldly said, "You know what would happen if you messed up?" "Yes." The three orcs shivered together and quickly acknowledged.